handoff up the middle, scoots out to the left side, and he is off to the races, as it says in the bottom of the screen that you can't see, to the crib.
To the crib. Carol Johnson and a Boston Karen.
Yeah. Here's our top 10 plays of the week.
Ready, down, push.
Number 2, check out this play from Rivers quarterback Darian Harper. Slow motion, dive it over into the end zone. I always hated Lou Holtz, right? Notre Dame is the greatest team that's ever played football in the history of football.
It's true.
They do the magic tricks before the game. The picks for this week. It's on the screen right here, Tyson. James Starrett. Thanks, James. Appreciate you being a part of the live stream comments. Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to Pigskin Profits. It's already episode 14. It's Thanksgiving week. Tyson, do your best turkey impersonation.
Gobble.
I was going like, oh! Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Nick, and then that's Tyson. We are the hosts of Pigskin Profits. Again, already episode 14. Man, it feels like that this season has been on fast forward all year long. I cannot believe that next week winter sports kick off in most places in the state of Washington. But here we are, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that here we are. I mean, I'm looking at football season, my own life. I feel like pretty soon we're going to blink. State championships are going to be decided. It's going to be Christmas. And we're going to be 2 weeks into the basketball season at that point. You'll be calling some of the games, switching avenues.
Yeah, getting my my basketball prowess underneath the headspace here. Trying to enunciate something intelligent for the first week is going to be very difficult. I rarely do that on the show anyway, as it is when talking about football, especially if you look at my bracket and in 4A, you'll definitely see that it's not good. So
yeah, 4A is brutal. It makes us look like we don't know it. We should probably just stop doing what we're doing right now.
Well, I think people would agree with that regardless if we had good brackets or bad brackets. It just so happens that right now they're not so good in 4A. But, hey, we knew, though, going into this year that 4A was going to probably be, like, the toughest one for anybody to, pick what was going on. I mean, if you look at the scores for the first 2 rounds – and the games, the results, it's just like, wow, really? Who saw this coming? I will say this, though. Like, we saw what, was culminating in terms of Lake Stevens and Graham Kapowsin all year long. You had both of those teams, 1A, 1B. You could jockey each horse, up and down the track all season long as to who's got the nose, right? Well, I think, not to jump the gun here on what we're talking about this week. We'll get into that in just a second. But, man, I think that right now Lake Stevens has kind of got the horse out in front. They look to be the team that is most prepared on both sides of the football. And it's not just the offense that's impressive to me. It's the defense. The defense has been phenomenal so far. Don't let the second half scoring fool you against Kennedy Catholic this last week. They dominated that game.
Yeah, and they've kind of been able to turn on a switch whenever they want to all year. I mean, you go back to the Bellevue game, what was it, 31 I want to say Bellevue didn't score in the second half. I might be wrong.
It was
27.
It was 27-7 at half, if I remember correctly, and Bellevue was up in that game.
28-7 maybe, because they ended up with 31. I want to say
something like that.
Yeah, I want to say it was 34th. I mean, top of my head, 34-31. But anyways, point was that, it seems like it's kind of something that they've been able to just turn on like a switch, like I was saying, at any time that they kind of need to or want to this season. Obviously, they didn't want to start in that hole against a team like Bellevue, but then to come around and completely shut things down in the second half. They're just a total complete team. They have a great quarterback who really is, he's like blossoming beyond, I think, anybody's, wildest expectations, where we've kind of mentioned earlier this season that last year he definitely got the job done as a sophomore and obviously won the state title, but they kind of leaned on the older Lamar. And now it's like Jay-Sean Lamar, the little brother, is a compliment to Colton. And I think from top to bottom, starting with their defense first, they're definitely the most complete team in 4A.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that right now. Not to say that Graham Kapowson is like light years behind them. They're obviously neck and neck, but Gonzaga Prep gave Graham Kapowson in the battle of hyphenated first name high schools, all they could handle, and they were up at half. And if I remember, I haven't checked my notes here, but Graham Kapowson, I believe, was held scoreless in the first half of that game, with the home field advantage. And we knew what we didn't know, if that makes sense, with Gonzaga Prep. We knew going into the game that we didn't know what kind of a team that they really had in comparison, to some of the teams that we thought were really good coming into the year. And when the coaches poll came out this year, it really validated what your thoughts were on 4A. And I put a lot of faith in the coaches. I think that they study the game more than we do, obviously, because that's why they're coaching. They need to, so they know going into the next week and the preparation that goes into figure out a way to win football games, who the good teams are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. And
right.
Graham Kapowson was figured to be the number one team according to the coaches, and Lake Stevens wasn't far behind. I think that we're in for a treat if we can get to that championship matchup. But Eastlake survives another close game at home, another 3-point win. They're just finding ways to win right now. In spite of me, in spite of you, in spite of Matt, because we're not picking them apparently. So maybe this week we'll wise up a little bit. And then you got Kamiakin, a team that has played a very tough schedule this season.
Yeah.
When you look at, Kennewick, when you look at Moses Lake, when you look at Richland, when you look at Chiawana, you see the type of schedule that they've played to get to
Emerald Ridge.
Emerald Ridge. And
Yeah.
if you look at what Emerald Ridge did on the offensive side of the ball, against Kamiakin's defense, you wonder, I guess, what's it going to take to beat a team like Kamiakin? Because they can win by outscoring you, and they can win by holding you to 6 points on your home field, in a very tough place to play in Mount Si. So there's a lot to be determined in the 4A semifinals still, obviously, this weekend. And, we'll talk a little bit about the results again from this last weekend. But real quick, before we dive into the high school scene, first thing I want to do is show everybody this gross alcoholic beverage that I've got to open up here. It's a Twisted Tea Peach. I'm out of IPA. This is going to make
about the half and half.
Yeah, this is going to make Dolan Holt real happy, because Dolan says he figures me an O'Doul's guy. Well, the good news is this actually has alcohol in it, Mr. Holt. So there you go.
Hey, whatever wets the whistle, right? Doesn't matter what it is.
It's actually not that bad. I'm not an iced tea fan, by the way. When you throw alcohol in it, it's kind of got a little bit of a Long Island, reminder to it. I like Long Island iced tea. Does that count?
James likes them.
Yeah. The Fog Hat Tour continues.
For sure. No, he actually he shot out in the chat. He's asking about Kamiakin.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you've seen
this
him in person.
matchup, I mean, if we, we don't want to get into previews prior to recaps necessarily, but yeah, that's a 6 seed that really they don't have many holes themselves either. They might not have, their junior quarterback might not have the reputation of like Matson and winning the games in a kind of on his arm necessarily, but Woodhouse is a tough kid for Kamaikin. I think he's torn his ACL twice, and he's come back from that in the last 3 years or so. And he's a junior, and we all know about the play he made against Emerald Ridge that we talked about on the. I wouldn't call it a Philly special because it was still snapped to the quarterback in that play. It was more like a jet sweep turned wide receiver like reverse pass to Woodhouse on the rollout. But then they got a kid like David Cuckoo who has gotten looks from Boise State, UW, WSU, Oregon State, like you name it, as far as Northwest schools go. That's really good at corner and wide receiver. And then, my favorite player in the entire state, Camden Schmidt, someone we've talked about the last couple of weeks. Actually, down the stretch, he's just been running like a madman since he took over at running back, but also great in the secondary. So it'll be a test for Lake Stevens to just hammer on Kamaikin a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm excited for the semifinal weekend for a lot of reasons. Those are just a couple reasons right there. You can go up and down each bracket and find some games that are going to be very intriguing, and seeing about where we've been all year long in terms of our perceptions. And, I mean, I've been wrong plenty of times though so far this year. I think I'm picking at like a 35% loss rate. So I mean 65% win rate, somewhere in there, 70%. I mean, if you look at the postseason, it doesn't look so good, especially in 4A. 2A, I'm pretty close. I'll say this: all my champions on the bracket challenge are still available, still alive and well. So just like last season I went 5 for 5 in champions. So if I do it again this year, obviously I'll have some room on my back for everybody to pat. I will be wrong, though. I have been. Like I said, Enumclaw and Eastlake, they know that. I picked Highline last week, and Enumclaw, did exactly what they said that they were going to do. And, they, for the better part of, keeping it, within the realm of reason, I mean, they kind of did what they wanted in that game offensively with Highline. And, they came up with enough defensive plays and stops to, put up 41 and, 30 points. Looks like a lot, especially against a team like Enumclaw. They haven't given up that many points all year, but they were pretty comfortable in that game pretty much the entire time.
Yeah, it was, it was catch-up mode for Highline pretty much after the second quarter because Enumclaw had a couple score lead, and we know how they like to play football. They tackle and run really well. I watched quite a bit of that. Actually, I watched all of that game. But I had a little 2-screen action going that night, so I might have missed a couple plays here and there. But, yeah, Highline just, catch-up mode doesn't allude to their style of play because they can score quickly, and they did quite a few times to get right back into the game. But ultimately, I mean, Coach Coop, I'm not questioning your decision-making here because I know you check in, but had they not gotten the 5 2-point conversions, it would have been a 1-touchdown game there towards the end. And I've seen that happen to multiple other teams this year. And, it's hindsight's always 20/20, right?
Most times, at least, you're going to find some situations and some scenarios to where, even though you look back on the decision at the time and, it didn't come up with the result that you were hoping for, doesn't necessarily mean it was the wrong decision, except in the case of the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl when they passed the ball at the 1-yard line with Marshawn Lynch on second down with a timeout in their back pocket. That's the only time where we know 1,000% that hindsight is 20/20. It's fucking 10/10. Excuse me, but yeah, that's still that play call has still got to be the worst play call in the history of football. So.
No, yeah, and I'm not saying it was the wrong decision. It's just like, at the end of that game, it feels a lot different. Had you been able
Right.
to convert every score into an extra point. You're looking at a
Yes.
41-35 game. And at
The
that
math.
point, yeah, anything can happen. I've seen it happen to multiple other teams this year where they go for 2 right off the bat, don't get it. So then they have to go for 2 the next time because they're down 14-6, and then they don't get that. And then it just snowballs from there. So, I mean, that's pretty much virtually what happened in that game.
Sure.
Overall, but Highline gave them a good fight. They still got a lot of good kids coming back next year. Like, they're not going away yet.
No, they got staying power as a program because they have that key word, program. Coach Cooper's doing a great job in getting everybody to buy in, and that's one reason why I ultimately picked them this last week was because, as we talked off the air, when you put in the work and you put in the grind, this could be testament from Anacortes as well. When you get that foundation laid and you start getting kids turning out, and one year you got 20 kids, and the next year you got 40, and the next year you got 60, the next year you got 80. It's like you're turning out 20 more kids each year. You're adding more coaches to your staff, more attention to detail, more people pushing you to get the results that they need to get out of you in the off season, all that preparation. We saw numerous quotes, at least I saw numerous quotes in newspaper articles after the results from this last week of the teams that advanced to this point that just commented about, hey, we put in the time, we put in the hours, we did everything we needed to do in the off season to get there. And when you've got that program, that foundation laid out, that teams are going to stay in that same gear, that same mode. And you can even look at, Coach Ports from Anacortes stepping aside this year and turning it over to Coach Anderson. It's like once that foundation's been laid and you've got somebody who was on staff and figured out what the formula is for you to be successful in your own way, it's easy to keep up that level of consistency. And we see with Anacortes that they have, quote, unfinished business hashtag, on Twitter. So,
right.
The culture has laid its foundation, right? So they have staying power. It takes once you get to that point, it takes a lot to kind of, I guess upend them, to knock them off their plateau. This isn't Highline's first quarterfinal appearance. They did it the year before, and then they were in the round of 16 the year before that against Squalicum. So they've taken steps in progression to get there. So I definitely think that they'll be around for a while, as long as he's there, or if it's turned over to an assistant. I have no doubt in my mind that the program is in a lot better hands than it was when they got it.
Oh, definitely. So, yeah, you see a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of programs, like you would say. Another one, 2A, that, speaking of the same game, Anacortes has got unfinished business, and Enumclaw has got take them to the woodshed. Like they've instilled this mantra into their culture, and it kind of seeps out of every corner of the culture, whether it's players, coaches, somebody in the town. It's like everything jumps on board. You look across the 3A at Yelm, and like we talked to Coach Ronquilla, I think it is. I might be I've heard it like 4 different ways. We should have asked him live. Hey, clarify how everyone's supposed to pronounce your last name. But, anyways, they got a stipend that they hire a strength coach, and he is there all off season and after, as far as not being on the books type programs, but they pay for it out of their budget. And I mean, those are the things that it takes to build that program and have consistency, even for like a school like Yelm, after a all world kid like Platt moves on, they're going to be just fine. We're going to see them probably back in the same situation next year.
Well, I think they've got 3 D1 commits on the team, and then a couple other, Division 2, Division 3 guys already. So, I mean, they're definitely a program that's going to continue to develop guys like Brayton Platt.
Yeah.
It's hard to consistently churn out 4-star recruits, but I think that when you, like you mentioned, when you instill that, that direction, the weight training program, when you give incentive, for things to be done, it usually yields the results that you're looking for. At least you hope it does. I mean, that's the idea behind it. So.
Well, no, but the beauty of that is you look at like 3A. The 4 teams that are left are the 4 teams that are doing that better than anybody. and have been for a long time. Eastside Catholic, O'Day, and Bellevue. I mean, we could go back in the record books from the last 20 years, and we'll probably see one of those three teams in this semifinal situation 99% of the time. And Yelm is setting themselves up to join that conversation. And shoot, we could see this semifinal for the bracket allows it to always shake out this way forever. I mean, inconceivably, not necessarily forever, but it just, I think we're starting to see the cream rise to the top with some of these across all classifications. We mentioned a GK and Lake Stevens. East Lake's been there. Yelm, Eastside Catholic, O'Day, Bellevue, they've all been there. Tumwater's been there. North Kitsap last year. Yeah. Anacortes and Enumclaw were both contenders at this, right in the quarterfinal round last year. At Enumclaw in the semifinals. There's 3 out of 4 teams that are the same in that one too. Then you could jump to 1A and you got Royal is Royal, but you've got a school like Lakeside that has, gone undefeated the last few years and have had great seasons, and they're finally starting to break through the ceiling there. Nooksack Valley, same story. Seton Catholic kind of coming out of nowhere as a 12 seed. And then obviously you got Napavine and Okanagan on Alaska up top. All 3 have been there a ton. Northwest Christian is that new one that's kind of rising. So we almost have one that's kind of, a rising program in each classification other than I'd say 4A, because you've seen Eastlake or Kamiakin do it in recent memory.
Yeah, the only team that I can think of in 3A that, has kind of mixed up the jumble, jumbled it up, I would say, is Auburn. Other than that, for the most part, like you're saying, it's been Eastside Catholic, it's been Bellevue, and those 2 teams, they went back and forth for a long time. O'Day is always in that like competitor range. They're always a team that's able to get to that semifinal round. But when you want to talk about like teams that are consistently playing for championships, you look no further than Eastside Catholic and Bellevue. Those 2 teams have done it more than anybody in the last 15, 20 years in 3A. So, I mean, Ferndale is another one of those teams that was kind of, in the mix for a while there in the mid-2000s, and they're still a good program.
Kennewick.
But Kennewick and Auburn, those are the only other teams that have really broken through. And now Yelm, obviously, having won last season, and, right. they figured they'd be in this exact spot. When we talked to Coach Ronquillo, do you anticipate playing Eastside Catholic? And, the grin shows up on the face. And it's just like, oh, yeah. He knows. He's a smart guy. He knows what's coming. And he knows that team is looking for the opportunity to play them. Both of those schools actually kind of grinded out their games. I mean, Eastside Catholic went on a, impressive second half run to hold off Kennewick. Kennewick was looking to make a comeback and, got the score down from 10-0 to 10-7, and then a long run, 41 yards, ends up sealing the game for Eastside Catholic, but a hard-fought win over a tough Kennewick team, and that was another team that was on coach's radar. So I mean, this week of semifinal games is just going to be incredible.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at some of these matchups, and I would say, there's a few clear favorites on the list, but virtually all of them could feel like a almost coin flip to you, at least on one side of the bracket.
Bro, at this point, I would not be surprised if anybody wins, really. If you look at the fact that Seton Catholic is even here in this spot for their side of the bracket, it doesn't, to me, suggest that they were underseeded, right? It just shows me that 1A has teams lurking anywhere in the bracket that can cause some damage. And, they went on the road and they beat an undefeated Kashmir team that had looked great all season long, not just good. They looked great all year long, and they beat teams, they played tough teams. I mean, I think at this point you got to just give Seton Catholic a ton of credit, but it just goes to show you that anything can happen. I wouldn't be surprised with any result this week. Alaska, has a quarterback that ran for 450 yards last week. At this point, nothing can shock you. Anything can happen.
Marshawn Lynch type runs too. I don't know if you saw the clip of that one, but I mean, he emerged out of like 3 groups of people, and it was like a 75-yard touchdown or something, ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Where do you want to go from here? You want to jump into where we're sitting on the bracket, or
in a second? Yeah, no, totally.
You got another point?
In a second. Let's go to 2B in just a little bit. First thing I want to say is, man, what took the college football committee so long to put Washington in the top 4?
I don't have an explanation for you.
I mean,
I think there's a weird like conspiracy. It's like you show Heisman hopefuls, and now all of a sudden, even though we haven't lost and he hasn't played bad football or had a skunker of a game, they've got Penix like 4th most likely, as far as odds go, and Bo Nix is number 1. It's like, in what game, what planet are you? I mean, Penix beat him for one, especially how he beat him late in the game like that. And then you go watch an Oregon game. It's like I follow these accounts on Twitter that are pretty big Husky accounts, Big Hood and Dubbed Up, and they're talking about, how you watch an Oregon game and it's like most of Bo Nix's stats are on screens, and then occasionally he'll go deep where you got Penix, and 9 times out of 10, with the exception of the, I think, Arizona game or Arizona State game, where he had to throw short way more often. It's like he's just dicing these teams up, and I don't know. I think there's some sort of the last thing we want to do is make Washington seem good because they got to go play interrupter in our favorite rivalry and conference that we know is given to one of 2 teams almost every single year, and it's weird. I feel like there's a clear, even when they started that game with Oregon State the other day, they fixed it, but at the beginning it said Washington versus number 10 Oregon State and no ranking for Washington. It's like, I don't know. I mean, it was obviously a mistake, but at the same time I looked at it and I'm like, they literally don't want to give them any credit for anything.
It's baffling to me on how a team like Michigan is ahead of them with one, quality win all year against Penn State pretty much, and everyone wants to be like, ooh, a game against Maryland is a trap game. Let me tell you something. If Maryland played Cal, right, I would probably pick Cal in that game. So don't tell me about trap game this, put Maryland up against Utah, man, put Michigan up against Utah. I think it's a totally different scenario.
Part of the problem is a lot of times you even listen to, I've heard a few podcasts recently where it's this collective, especially on Spaces and stuff, and they've got guys from Texas and guys from Alabama, and they're like, yeah, but look what happened last time a Pac-12 school played against one of these schools. And it's like, I get if you want to correlate the past with the current in that aspect to some extent, but it's also possible that all those other leagues are way more down than they have been in the last 5 or 6 years, and the Pac-12's finally up. You gotta you can't use the past to say this 2-loss team is going to beat the brakes off of this undefeated UW team because they're from the Pac-12.
Yeah, I don't think it's comparable, honestly. The numbers don't lie.
East Coast bias is all it comes down to.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. But at the same time, they got Oregon as the top 1-loss team. So if you got Oregon as the top 1-loss team, right, Washington beat that team, right? So it's like, how are they so closely related to one another in terms of the rankings? Like, personally, I'd have Georgia number 1. After that, I honestly would put Washington's resume up against Ohio State and Michigan right now.
Especially when you look at their team overall. Ohio State, they do not have CJ Stroud or Justin Fields playing quarterback anymore.
No.
That kid that's playing for them is average. And I feel like that's a compliment from what I've seen. And then speaking of talent, they want to blow up and say, oh, Marvin Harrison's a Heisman candidate. He's going to win the Heisman, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, look at Rome Odunze.
Yeah.
And you don't even hear him say his name unless you're listening to like a draft analyst.
So if Michigan played Oregon, right, who would people pick in that game, right? If Oregon played Ohio State, who would people pick in that game, right? And I don't even think it really. Yes, this season, I don't think it really even matters where the game is played at. You know, if the game's at Michigan, if the game's at Ohio State, you know, I want to see what the betting line's going to be. I bet you they'd be favored at Ohio State. They just won at Ohio State like 2 years ago.
Well, and this year, I mean, I think we can see how clear everybody loves Oregon. You know, just to even have them considered to be the top one-loss team in the country when you got like Alabama and stuff sitting there too. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like they want to love Oregon. They don't want to believe in Washington because we had Jake Browning in 2016 and, you know, we didn't get the job done.
Yeah, that's politician talk, bro. Like that doesn't work for me. You can't build up one team and tear down the other that beat that one team. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway, I wanted to get that out real quick just because it's nice to see them in the top 4. It's nice to see them jump Florida State at least. Obviously, if they win against Washington State, they will move ahead of whoever loses the Ohio State-Michigan game. You know,
so you would think.
it's a guarantee. I'm actually more interested in this. I'm more interested to see if Oregon's ranked ahead of them too. I want to see if Oregon is going to be ranked higher than either Michigan or Ohio State next week. I want to see what they value the Big Ten at because I personally don't value it. You know, like everybody else does. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway.
Yeah. Go Dogs.
Yeah, you know, I will say this. You can never, ever, ever overlook the Cougars with any implications. Anything on the line, throw it out. It's for both teams. You know, if Washington State happens to be in position to do something, then, you know, throw it out the window. Here comes UW with a 5-5 record, 5-6 record, you know. Here comes Washington State with a 5-6 record, whatever.
Especially
it is.
Now. I mean, you know that the Cougs are going to use every bullet they have towards this whole conference realignment thing. Let's ruin these spoiled dog season. Like, they're going to have every dang quote you could possibly have pinned up on that bulletin board, ready to go play the spoiler.
I was going to ask you, what was our record last week for our picks?
In the games we picked of all the playoff games?
Yes.
So you and Matt, we didn't get his scores, but you guys were both 12-8, and I was 15-5.
God, you cheater.
I don't know. I just double. I probably won't win the brackets, but I'll double down on the weekly 20 games that I do pretty well.
Suck.
Well, the 5 games we did lose, though. Some of them did still surprise me. I mean, or that I lost, I suppose, and we lost some of the same ones. But yeah, it was. I didn't even realize it was 20 games until after I started going through them and putting in scores. I was like, oh shoot, this was perfect to be an add-on to our regular season picks.
Yeah, I was pretty close in that Lakeside Freeman game, eh? That one I had 24-20 and it was 27-20. So no, I had 27-20 and it was 24-20, excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to just run down all the scores and we can kind of
let's just run through that. Let's run through 2B real quick.
Yeah. So we've got 2 games, or 4 games, excuse me. Let's go with number 1, Napa Vine and Riverview. Game that ended up 43-14. I think it was 34-0 or
43-0
at halftime. Yeah.
Just after halftime, it was 43-0.
Yep. You weren't too far off in that game. You said 50-17, so close. I thought it was going to be a closer game. I said only a 10-point spread, 38-28, so I was definitely way off. But we still both had the winner in that one, and so did Matt.
Not a shock.
No, I mean, if Riverview wins that game per se, that's them really making a huge statement like, hey, we've arrived, because I think if anybody beats Napa Vine, they could probably say that at any point in the season. I mean, besides maybe the Linden Christian game.
Well, Napa Vine's been playing so good ever since the Linden Christian game, and they were playing really good before that game as well. They were dealing with some injuries going into that one and got behind the 8 ball quickly. And before you know it, the game's out of reach. But, Kalama and Onalaska, man, last week, 60-40, combined for 100 points. Napa Vine running clocked both of those teams. So, you look at how good that they've been playing so far this season. I mean, it would come as a shock to me to see a team anytime before the championship come within 2 touchdowns of them. They're just playing so effectively, So,
yeah, I mean, not to predict that next matchup, but like you said, running clocked them. Although, playoff football is playoff football. Anything can happen. You got a quarterback running for 450.
Yeah, and that quarterback happens to play for Onalaska, and his name is Caden Mazingo. And for the second game in a row between those two teams, Kalama jumped out in front. And surprisingly enough, Kalama was able to build that lead in this game most recently against Onalaska, with Aiden Brown getting injured on the second play of the game and breaking a bone in his arm. I mean, you want to talk about gutting it out and, pain tolerance and being there for your team. He's got a future still, just a junior coming back next season for his senior year. Obviously, that's a game film that you could put on for a college coach, and, you could show him a tremendous amount of heart and grit, whatever word that you want to use that shows a kid digging deep. If you told me that Kalama got 40 points on the road in a playoff game, I guess it was a neutral site on the road, but if you told me that, right, and we hadn't made our picks yet, I'd say Kalama won the football game, but when you've got a guy like Mazingo who, like you said earlier, was running the football with a purpose, man, like Marshawn Lynch just barreling over everybody. I mean, the game plan for Onalaska worked. They were like a boxer in a 15-round fight that was working the body the entire time in the first half of the fight. And then they just started landing haymaker after haymaker after haymaker. And there was nothing that Kalama could do to slow it down at that point. 60 points offensively on the blacktop in Tenino. Very impressive offensive performance by the Loggers. They just grinded one out, man. I mean, that if they're able to run 3 to 4 yards at a time with success and wear down a team like Napa Vine and try to just play ball control, crazier things have happened second time around. I think back to when Kalama played Napa Vine a few years ago, and in the first game Kalama really worked them over, and then in the state championship game Napa Vine came back super prepared, and it took a Jackson Esri, play for Kalama to end up getting the winning score and winning the state championship. I think by 5 points. I think it was 19-14. My memory is usually pretty good, but you know what I'm saying? It's like anything could happen that second time around, and it's just a battle of styles. If Napa Vine's defense prevails and plays like it has been so far this year, I mean, they force turnovers, they're opportunistic, and they make you pay as soon as they get them.
Well, yeah, there's something to be said about playing a team twice. I mean, even if you do get your doors blown off of you that first matchup, every year is a new group of kids. It's that way all the way to the NFL. It's practically a new team nowadays. But, you play a team twice a year and that team blows you out first time. Well, now you know exactly what you have to do to beat those guys and how good you really have to play, how focused you have to be. And, I think that's super important because it essentially sets that bar. it humbles you to the point that they might have thought, man, we're, walking around with your chest out, you win a couple of games, we're as good as it gets, we're going to go all the way. And then you get smacked in the mouth, and it's like, okay, well, I can tell I was more worried about walking the walk than I was talking the talk at this point. And that, yeah, I mean, anything's possible with that matchup. I think everybody in their educated mind is still going to take a team like Napa fine, but if that's a game, I'm not going to be surprised.
No, they're league rivals, division rivals. Wouldn't be surprised. You got a lot of film. You got a lot of guys that seen each other over the years. It's two programs constantly there. Got another program that's been there a lot recently as well here. We were a little unsure last week going into this game, I think. At least I was. I speak from you too sometimes, sorry. But
No,
I was a little unsure with the Okanagan Goldendale game. I kind of grouped Goldendale into that, Gonzaga prep category where you just don't quite know what you're getting out of them in terms of the other teams that are in the upper echelon of the bracket. We collectively knew what we were getting with Okanagan and their program and what they've been accomplishing over the last couple of seasons. And they handled Goldendale in this one, 38-zip. Again, defense rules the day. Crazy to think that, Okanagan is another one of those teams that can beat you on both sides of the football. Obviously, scoring points is the name of the game, but if you're preventing the opponent from scoring points along the way, it makes for a tremendously difficult time. And when you got a guy at 6'5" at quarterback and your boy Kukenboo, grinding out on defense, and much like Mazingo did for Onalaska, it's going to make the formula really, really tough for Marshall Hart's gang from Northwest Christian that shut out Toledo 41-0. You got a pair of, East Side shutouts.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and for Okanagan to hold Goldendale to squat, I mean, you look back to the prior 2 weeks for Goldendale, they had a running back named Matthew Gray that had over 320 yards in each game. And then I never saw a final stat line for that game, but, obviously shut them down and shut down Goldendale altogether to the aspect of a goose egg. But, I think, you speaking for you, you've always liked to use the word litmus test or phrase, and that definitely was. It's like it kind of, is Okanagan a real contender? We kind of thought they were all year, but this game could have maybe shown that they might be a little bit more of a pretender than we thought they were. But, they answered the bell, and you can't question that result in any fashion or form.
Well, just look at the result that Okanagan had this year against 1A OMAC, 55-7 Okanagan in that game. Royal plays, a more improved OMAC team, right, to this point, 49-0. So, Okanagan's not far off on my little litmus test, here. And then you also look at game against Pullman, right, a 2A opponent, 45-14, and Pullman's league is pretty tough from that 2A, 4A hybrid in the GSL. We saw that Clarkston was able to, pick up a win in 2A, and Rogers was able to make it to the postseason in round of 16, right? So, Okanagan's played the who's. They've played up. We both have Napavine and Okanagan playing for the championship. I suppose at this point here, Tyson, the only thing that I'm really curious about is, how Northwest Christian fits into this equation with Napavine and with Okanagan. We've posed that question pretty much ever since we had Coach Hart on the show back in the middle weeks of the year, getting to know the gang from Colbert. Very, very, very curious to see how this matchup is going to go with Okanagan. Again, I said it last week with Goldendale, right? Because you just don't quite know. I know that Northwest Christian is a good team. How good of a team they are, I think remains to be seen, but they have a great opportunity this week. And, holding Toledo to no points with a running back like Ethan Carver, who's gone over 2 bills several times this year, very impressive. I think that this one could be an absolute grinder, mid-20s.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a game because, I mean, even talking to Hart back then, he's very aware of Okanagan. And, I think it's a team he's had circled all year that it's like, if from our standards, east of the mountains, in his perspective, that is the standard we need to achieve in order to win and at the highest level. And, I think, like you said, it's going to be a really close game. He's been preparing for it for all year. He knows what they're like. And frankly, it's a battle of two unbeatens, and I don't think one is less legit than the other. So it's gonna pose to be a very tight game.
Well, Travis Fox loves Okanagan here, says they were very strong over Goldendale, and I would agree with that sentiment. I mean, that's a great word to describe Okanagan, is strong. They're a very physical team in the trenches. They're big. I don't like to, I guess, use the word deceptive when it comes to a physical team that can just run you over. But it makes it harder when you got a quarterback like Kukaboo who can actually carry out the fakes and the triple option to make it a little bit more deceptive as well, to combine with that physicality element. I mean, the one thing when you're on the defensive side of the ball is that you don't want to be on your heels, especially when you've got 240 pounds coming right downhill at you, right? It's already tough enough to make a tackle on a guy when you're running right at him and he's that size. If you're on your heels as well and your eyes are moving in different directions, it makes it a lot harder for the defense, and I'm curious to see how Northwest Christian is going to game plan for this, type of a matchup. And like I said, they just saw a really good running back last week in Carver. And Toledo was a team that made it to the quarterfinals back-to-back years. That's a great test for them to running clock them and shut them out at the same time. Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to have an absolute banger. I think 2B has turned out exactly, how most people had it. I had Kalama instead of Onalaska, so I'm 3/4 of the way there. But yeah,
No, definitely. I mean, I'd say, and half of it was predictable from week 1, but by week 6 or so, you and I both were kind of like, well, it seems like Northwest Christian is building themselves a resume to have that 3rd or 4th spot. And I mean, obviously it worked out the way the committee seeded it, just like 2A did.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, how much of a effect the seeds had in determining the bracket here in 2B. I don't really think it had much. I mean,
they were all commanding wins in the last round, and
I would say that Kalama and Onalaska game, I think that if that game's played 10 times a year, no matter what the location is, I think that those teams probably go, 5-5, somewhere in that range, healthy, completely healthy, both teams, So it's just kind of a, who played better that day type thing. It was a neutral field game. So, I mean, I feel like that the committee did a really good job in 2B of getting everything ultimately, settled where it's at. So,
hey, speaking of neutral field, this is the sidebar I wrote down from earlier. Why is it called the Blacktop? Do you know?
Because the field is black.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that's
It's like
every day.
It's like the Smurf turf in Boise State, or the red turf that's at Eastern Washington
at night. That's probably pretty cool.
Yeah, bro. That's why they call it the Blacktop. Yeah,
well, it makes sense now.
What the hell?
I figured there had to have been some sort of it's like, unless they just built the field on a slab of blacktop and we're like, it's called Blacktop.
It ain't the Astrodome.
Good to know they think a little bigger down there in Tenino.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. The Beavers, bro. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to our picks later for 2B. We'll continue to rattle on through our review of last weekend, and I think for 1A, it starts with the Linden Christian Nooksack Valley game, and it was a huge rematch from a Northwest Conference game earlier that was decided by 1 point in favor of Linden Christian, and this time it's all Nooksack Valley here. And this one, they win this 47-14. A great bounce back win for Nooksack Valley. A tough way for Linden Christian's season to come to an end. Their star player, quarterback, and defensive lineman Jeremiah Wright suffering a dislocated elbow in the game, and it happened on a PAT when he was defending on the last play before the first half ended. So, I mean, you want to talk about a real gut punch, right? I mean, it's bad enough losing your quarterback, but a quarterback of his caliber and for all that he means in the offense for Linden Christian, to go down in that moment, it was 16-7, still a relatively close game. In fact, if I remember, LC was down by 2 scores in the game against Nooksack the first time, and they were able to rally and get the win. This time, Nooksack did not let them off the hook, and they were very tough to deal with in the second half. They amassed a 33-7 lead at one point in the second half, and Nooksack Valley is a 6 seed. Depending on who you ask, some people would say that Nooksack Valley was seated a little low. I disagree with that. I feel like that their resume throughout the year, probably slotted them in the right spot. But we went back and forth on this a while back, right? I mean, where would you actually put them, right? If you had a head-to-head matchup with this team, with this team, with this team, who would you pick to win? And I think we all collectively agreed we'd probably pick Nooksack in that situation. But with 2 losses, the 6 seeds where they ended up, and yeah, they're playing like a team that's much better than that because, they are a really good team. They probably are one of the top, 3-2 teams in 1A. They're going to have a chance to play for a championship if they can get by their opponent this week in Lakeside.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had them, I think, number 2. Well, it might have been number 1 to start the preseason. I'd have to pull up my old rankings list. But
sounds right.
From a talent, thankfully, now that I have a new website, recruit-radar.com, I can go back and look. No, preseason, I still had them at number 2 behind Royal. But, from a talent standpoint, it's still really where I see them. And that's why they're a 6 seed playing here, coming off a dominant win against a 3 seed, really. They just had a few slip-ups throughout the year and kind of got dinged up halfway through the year. And they've taken their bye. I listened to a podcast with Britt Lentz, Colton Lentz's dad. And, they've taken their bye kind of second weekend, third weekend of October the last couple of years to get healthy. And they're all kind of country boys. So they take the week off and went hunting or did whatever. And I think it kind of gave them a chance, especially this year, to press reset on their health and kind of their state of mind. And they've been playing out of their mind since.
Yeah, I mean, they had a really, really close game. The Kings on the road, losing by 2, and a really close game against LC the first time, losing by 1. You're taking 2 losses by a combined 3 points, and dealing with a couple of players dinged up that were pretty important for them. Obviously, has something to do with that. Beating a team like Mountain View on the road by a couple of scores to open up the season. Nooksack put themselves in really good position to, test themselves throughout the regular season. Same can be said for Linden Christian. If I had to go back and look at every team's schedule preseason, I think
by far the most difficult.
Yeah, I think we would have definitely said that Linden Christian's was going to be the toughest, and that was one reason why I was riding them to win the state championship before the bracket came out, right? After the bracket came out, I obviously picked Royal, but I saw them. I had Linden Christian in the championship game playing them, right? I mean, I still believed enough in them that they were going to be able to win the games necessary to get to that point. It just so happens that they had a matchup with Nooksack Valley, and that's tough, playing a division league, whatever you want to call it, rival, for the right to continue to play on for the season. You look at a team like Nooksack Valley, I mean, they're great at running back, they're great at quarterback, they're great on defense, they're great on special teams. I was a little surprised that they lost the game against Kings earlier this year. I wasn't quite as shocked with the slip up to LC because they're a quality program, but I mean, I think that you could say that Nooksack has kind of been on that same ascent, that same plateau, on where that they've been trying to get. Had it not been for Mount Baker getting extremely hot last year and beating them down the stretch, they could have been playing for the championship last year easily. This is their second straight semifinal appearance. So Nooksack Valley has done a great job last couple of years, and I think that they're on the right side of the bracket to get to the championship game again this year, playing Lakeside, but not so fast, my friend. Lakeside enjoying their first semifinal appearance ever, and they're an interesting team.
Yeah, definitely. They've another team that's kind of been able to beat you in all aspects this season, whether it's against Linden Christian early in the year. I think it was 14-7. And then they've had games where they've won tight ones, like against Freeman the first time, or just this last week against Freeman in the game again. It was a close game at 24-20, of which you had picked 27-20. And, obviously another league opponent, played each other twice. Freeman had the ball in that game in the last minute and a half on the about 45-yard line of the other side of Lakeside's side of the field. And, it ultimately came up to a hook and ladder that they tried to run on fourth down and fumbled the ladder portion of it. But that said, Lakeside, they're a program that's just trying to break through that ceiling, and they have staying power as far as being relevant, most definitely. And we had Cole Hunsaker on here last year, their quarterback, and awesome kid. I mean, could probably be a media personality himself if he wants to one day. But now they've got a new quarterback that played tight end for him last year in Calvin Mickelson. And frankly, he's, when you start looking across the field at who they're playing in Nooksack, him and Colton Lentz are like the same type build. Mickelson's a senior this year, so he's a little bit older, but big solid 6'1", 6'2", 215, 220 quarterback that I think played on a hurt ankle most of the season and gritted it out, and it's going to be a good game. I'm still going with Nooksack ultimately. That's who I picked to win the state title, but that's going to be a fun matchup, especially Nooksack's got to travel a long ways.
Yeah, you mentioned Mickelson, and he was the reason why they ended up winning the game ultimately against Freeman. And, big body, senior, like you mentioned, had a big 12-yard carry late in the third quarter. And from what I was, reading about the game is that, he was stood up at the 5-yard line, but got some help from his offensive line and kept his legs moving and ended up going in for the go-ahead score. And, the defense did it from there. And that was another game where those two teams are playing for the second time this season and, playing over on the east side, very, very, very cold, very uncomfortable, very physical game. And I think a lot of positives can be said about Freeman, probably the best 4-loss team in the state this year, regardless of classification. And, we talked about Brody Bonus last year and, how talented
Bowen Phelps.
Bowen Phelps, excuse me. Yep,
Yeah.
My bad. I was thinking Lynn Ritzfield Sprague for a second there.
Bowen's over at, I think he's at Boise State now.
Yeah. But yeah, Freeman's another one of those teams kind of like Lakeside, come from the same area and, same league, tough teams. And very, very, very gritty football game between those two and back and forth. So great season to the Scotties, one of my favorite team names in the state. I love their logo, love pretty much everything about them, the way they play football. They're very physical, and it's going to be a test for Nooksack Valley. Lakeside played Linden Christian in week 1. It was 14-7, and the defense played very, very well. Royal's another team that also played Linden Christian and held them to 7 points. And again, we're talking about the dog days of November here, where it's uncomfortable outside and nobody wants to be there playing tackle football. But somebody's going to come out of that game victorious. Duh, Captain Obvious statement of the day. You just kind of look at that matchup, and I think both teams are probably happy with where they're at in terms of playing each other. mainly because Royal is, looking for the four-peat, and they're so good. If we want to transition to them real quick here, but man,
Yeah.
I mean, OMAC, they played La Center and they played them tough, and they again another team with a few losses this year looked like they could, potentially give Royal a little bit of a test. So I don't know what we had for the score in that game if you have that written down there, but I mean it was 49-0 in the final for Royal in this one, and I'll talk a little bit more in depth after you tell us what we thought on the score.
Yeah, you had it at 42-14. I had it at 35-21. And it wasn't a game after the first 6-7 minutes. I watched most of the first half, and Royal is, I mean, let's just say I love Mickelson. Joey Brown's a good quarterback. Lance Allred is going to play quarterback at college somewhere. I mean, he's relatively new to the position. From what I think, it was his brother. It was either his brother or his cousin. Last
Dylan,
year,
I believe.
Yeah, and Lance took over. I think he was a wide receiver last year. And man, you watch that kid, and he's just Mr. Improviser. He makes something out of nothing. He's smooth and slick running the ball. And then they just have a plethora of other kids that are just constantly making plays too. It's like, talk about a true, real program. I mean, what are they working on? Title number 15 since 2000 or title number 14? Something ridiculous.
Yeah, I saw the highlight of one of his touchdown throws, and he rolls out to the right, and the lineman comes up like he's going to sack him, and he literally just like pushes him right off of him and then proceeds to throw a touchdown to the back of the end zone on kind of a, fire drill type throw. And I'm just like, man, just stop. I put that
really good.
Put that on tape for anyone to see. It's like, and then he's got great speed. He's even got great instincts on the defensive side of the ball. He had an interception return for a touchdown in this game. He ends up having, Allred. I mean, here's the thing, right? I fully agree with what you're saying about his skill set. You look at the box score, you're not blown away. 150 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, right? Lots of quarterbacks have that throughout the, the state throughout the season.
He only played one half though, didn't he?
Right. Yeah. And not only that, if you put it on tape and you look and see how well he executes the offense and how quick he moves with the ball, right? I'm not just talking with his legs, though. He makes a decision and he gets good zip on the ball. He gets good placement on the ball. I mean, they look like a well-oiled machine, bro, that's just like not going to be derailed anytime soon. They just look like they play faster than anybody. I mean, they're so quick in how they get to the line, on how they execute. Their offensive line did a phenomenal job. I know I mentioned he shook off a sack, but it was only because he was rolling outside the pocket and the defensive end was able to get off a block and kind of start chasing him down a little bit. But when he has a clean pocket, which is often, I mean, it's just that much tougher. You look at the other contributors in this game. Jared Reed, running back, 6 carries,
Jared
15
Lee.
yards. Oh, is it Lee?
Lee, yeah.
Oh, I wrote Reed. Oh, well. 3 touchdowns on 6 carries, and he just had 15 yards. And then on defense,
he's their middle linebacker, and sorry.
That's okay. Benson Jenks, 8.5 tackles on defense, 3.5 are tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. I mean, there's contributors all over for Royal. A tough team to beat.
49-0. I think had a couple touchdowns, maybe an INT. It's like a 4.4, 4.5 kid. I'd love to see them play a bigger school. I mean, it's like they don't know how to lose, ultimately.
Them against Tumwater.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. It'd be so much fun.
That'd be a game.
It would be neat to see, that kind of a tournament at the end of the year. I mean, obviously will never happen, but it would be interesting. Yeah.
Let's go. Royal moves on 49-0. Great season to the Pioneers of OMAC. Nothing to hang their heads about. Quarterfinal appearance. But, Royal just keeps doing what they do, and that's win, and often. And they're looking to win another state championship. the season after finally having like a 38 game win streak snapped. I mean, yeah, I mean they've won what 48 out of their last 49 or something like that.
I want to say it was like a 52 game winning streak. I could be wrong on that.
Nah, it's like mid 30s. Yeah, no, absolutely. You gotta trust me. You gotta trust me in my elephant memory here.
Yeah, it was. Anyways, I mean, Seton Catholic though. I mean, that's the last game we haven't talked about. That's who they gotta play.
Yeah,
and
I mean, guts,
you mentioned it earlier. Yeah, I mean, Kashmir looked awesome. I had Kashmir beating Royal ultimately in the semifinal game to go play Nooksack, but a game that Kashmir had the lead swapped. I want to say twice. Travis will tell us if he's still watching, but I think they got an onside kick in the third or fourth quarter, and they were just kind of scoring at will the same way they did a week ago. It's like that offense is really, really clicking. I don't know if it's coming off of the legs of Williams and Kalarame or Colton Gesser is blossoming into his father, right before our very eyes. But it'd be an interesting matchup. I mean, I think Seton Catholic has enough athletes to make it a game. It's just, do they have the discipline to play a team like Royal?
Yeah, I mean, you're asking a lot, to go to Royal and to play this game, but man, nothing to hang their heads about regardless of how this game goes. I'm talking like it's over already. I know that's not the case, but you can't count them out, man. Down 35-21 last week, in the fourth quarter, season on the line, and you get a touchdown to make it a one-score game. You get an onside kick, and all of a sudden you got a 31-yard touchdown to Riker Ruelas and tie ball game. Then you get a 94-yard drive culminated by a Calarame 9-yard run. And then you get a game-clinching interception from Ruelas, and game's over. You're on the road winning 42-35. I mean, not many teams can fall behind by 2 scores in the fourth quarter when you get to the quarterfinals and make the comeback, especially when you're like just coming into your own as a program, and Seton Catholic is the new kid on the block here in the 1A tournament. And I think that I would be remiss if I didn't mention to everybody that Tyson was on Seton Catholic. Tyson changed his pick, with them and Le Center was like, bro, the more I watch these guys, they got speed all over. There's athletes everywhere. They're a good team, and they're going to win this game. And for 3.5 quarters, it looked like they were. It looked like they were going to win that game, and they were going to be the league champions. But ultimately, when you look at the postseason, even though Le Center got that win by 1, and even though Le Center got the Trico championship, and even though they got a higher seed, look who is playing on. Look who's playing deeper. The 12 seed Seton Catholic. It's a testament to never stop believing, because that was a game at home. They could have easily packed up shop and been like, all right, guys, this isn't our year. This was our toughest game that we had all season long, until they went on the road and played Kings, right? They went on the road and played Kashmir, 2 teams that
a long ways on the road too. I mean, from Vancouver to Wenatchee.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's just so it's so awesome. It's a great story. It really is. And I hope that they are competitive this week, and being that they're just a few miles away, I would hope that they can come up with a victory and do something. But I don't have rooting interest really in the game. I just want there to be a good football game and a great story. And I always like the underdog. I've always liked the underdog, so
totally. And it's kind of cool to get to see, we had Bumpus on with us earlier, and a Cougar legend, and Jason Gesser is as big of a Cougar legend as ever existed. And that kid that's their quarterback is his son, and he's only a sophomore. That's probably the neatest part about it, is it's like, when your quarterback that's one of your key guys is still only a sophomore, elevating you to this level, what's going to happen in the next couple of years? Kalarame is only a junior. It's like they they're going to be here next year too. I'm sure they are.
Well, Seton Catholic, they turned out a guy who went to school there a few years ago. His name was Ty Snyder. And he transferred out of Seton Catholic to go play at Ridgefield. And he ended up winning Greater St. Helens League Player of the Year for the Ridgefield team that made it to the quarterfinals. And Snyder ended up going to Central Washington. Really good wide receiver. So, I mean, maybe it's Kingsway that I'm thinking of. It could have been he could have been a Kingsway transfer, but I thought he went to Seton. But I don't know. My point is that I believe that they've had the opportunity to turn out athletes and develop them. And it's great to see them do that, with where they're located at in the Vancouver area. And I'm excited to see how the game goes and how they're able to continue to develop. You mentioned Gesser being just a sophomore, a lot of good young talent in the state right now. State of Washington's got a lot of talent no matter where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, any class, any region of the state, you can find somebody that's going to contribute at the next level for sure.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it might have been Kingsway, which is sacrilege to compare Kingsway and Seton Catholic, by the way. So they kind of have a rivalry as well.
Right. Well,
I better get my goddamn facts right before I speak.
Especially when you're talking about private schools.
Yeah. Absolutely. All I need to do is just go back and pop on the broadcast that I did with Ty Snyder and company, and I'll have the answer. This is that elephant memory that I was just talking about a little bit ago. But yeah, we'll get our picks in for 1A here in just a little bit. Let's move up to 2A.
Elephants live a long time.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, that means that they have a lot of regret too. So 2A, man. We're kind of in the same neighborhood as where we thought we would be, minus Enumclaw's in place of Highline in my bracket. Yeah, I think you're perfect in your bracket, though, correct?
Not perfect. In the first round, well, I mean, I'm perfect in my picks this week, but in the first round, I picked Woodland over Clarkston, and I also picked Washougal over Ording. That's where I went. That's where I've gone awry. But only to make it past that first round.
Well, good job. Yeah, Jake says it's Kingsway. Jake, you know everything too. All right. Hey, at least I caught myself a little bit, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't. Yeah, it's total horse shit argument when you're talking about Seton Catholic. So, what do you think about that?
Oh, the other game that I did miss this week was I wasn't perfect in my picks. Let's backtrack a little. I chose Linden to beat North Kitsap, and they didn't. And I watched that game, and North Kitsap earned that win. They did everything that they should have to beat a team like Linden, and I put out a tweet
Linden too.
Yeah, I put out a tweet about how Linden lost the game and received quite a bit of backlash about it from a reporter from Linden and a parent, I believe. But basically, that Linden lost the game the same exact way they lost at Anacortes. They were on about the 30-yard line, and they still had time left. It was first down. This was Linden's first possession of overtime after surrendering a rushing touchdown to North Kitsap on a pretty sustained overtime drive. It was about 6 or 7 plays, maybe a little bit, maybe more. But first play, Linden decides we're splitting our wide receiver out to the top, going the same direction as they were against Anacortes, ran the same exact double move route, and the kid played it the exact same way Luca Moore did out in front, and it got intercepted. Game over. And anyways, like I was saying, I got quite a bit of heat saying, oh, well, I don't want to bash anybody, but saying, oh, well, they had 12 men on the field and Anacortes did too in that play. And then I saw a screenshot of it, and it was of a play that happened in the fourth quarter where Linden had the ball on like the 45-yard line. And anyways, going back to my point, North Kitsap earned the win. They played great in that game, but we've seen them play Tumwater again this year, and I have a hard time believing that second time go around is going to be a closer game than, say, some of the other second go arounds we've already talked about.
Yeah, it's I'll say this, right? It's always a shame when there is an opportunity for a flag to be thrown sometimes, and I'm one of the type of guys that I don't like to see flag football, right? I don't like to see a ton of flags determining things. I don't like the referees being as involved as they are in, like, say, the NFL, right? When there's a penalty, there's a penalty, right? And most times you can see it; it's pretty clear. I mean, should it have been called the 5-yard penalty for the 12 men on the field? Yeah. I mean, the referee was right there in position at the line of scrimmage with the player running off. Did it affect the outcome of the game? I don't think so. I think it's hard to go that far, especially with the time and the distance and the fact that the game went to OT. It's difficult to say in that situation that a call decided a game. I don't buy into that very much. I think that as a player and as a coach, having played football before, it's like you could control what you could control on the field. I mean, there was a time when I was on the offensive line and I was called for holding on a 60-yard touchdown run. And I know for a fact I didn't hold anybody, but it was still called. And there's nothing that I could do about it. And we ended up losing the game by 4 points. So, I mean, would we have won that game? In my head, more than likely we would have. But, we still had 2 quarters to go. There were still other opportunities for us to figure out a way to erase that and still win the football game. You got to give credit where credit's due ultimately, right? I mean, Linden's had a hell of a run, and they're another team just like Royal, just like Tumwater, to where they're always winning, because they have such a great tradition. They have such great community. They've got tremendous athletics in almost everything they do. Last season, boys football champions, boys basketball champions, second place boys baseball state. So, I mean, they're pedigreed to win because of how hard they work. And, it's a testament to beat a team like that. I picked them for a reason. I had the game 28-27 and it ended up going into OT 28-28. And North Kitsap ends up having to go on offense first and they score and they don't even get the extra point, bro. I don't know if they went for 2 and didn't get it, but I mean, 34-28 at that point. I mean,
I think it was blocked, the extra point.
Okay. Well, you come out, right, and then you throw a pick on the first play, right? I mean,
ultimately,
you still got my point is you still have an opportunity to win the game there, right? If you score, protect the football, kick a PAT, you win 35-34 and you're advancing, So, I mean, give credit where credit's due. North Kitsap's a great program. They overcame a couple of losses to them over the last few seasons. It was a close game, good battle, and they're on to the next round.
Yeah, no, I mean, frankly, for Linden, you look back at their season and the games that they did lose, they lost it in a fashion that they haven't lost games in prior years, and kind of getting away from their proven identity per se. I mean, they have a great prospect that they're playing quarterback. He's only a junior, but they got a little pass happy at times in some of those games, and that hasn't been their strength. And ultimately it's what lost them that game, lost them the Anacortes game. They had a rough time throwing the ball in the Ferndale game and really tried to do it a lot. And that's no slight to their quarterback in any shape or fashion. Cause I mean, if I could draw one up in a lab, that's pretty much what the printer would print out. But playing football a little bit differently, and ultimately just the not so conservative approach sometimes backfires on you.
I mean, either way you look at it, it was a great game, close, and it's playoff atmosphere football. Everything that happens in the game is magnified, whether it's a call here, a call that doesn't get made, a turnover. It doesn't matter what the time situation is. When you got a close playoff game, I mean, everything's over magnified. So, again, congrats to both teams. Great season for Linden. And I can't remember what the last year was that Linden had 3 losses in the same year. But, I mean, I would definitely
teens, I think.
I would say that this is, I'm not going to say a down year for them, but it was a transition year. They lost a lot of seniors. We knew that going into this season, and I think that they had a hell of a run with what they've got, and I think that they're going to be right back in position next year to make another deep run and compete for another championship. So North Kitsap, meanwhile, I mean, they still have staying power also, and they get another crack at Tumwater after Tumwater did what they have been doing all year long. They had 7 running backs combined for over, I think, 300 yards rushing. Just completely dominant once again. The crowd's chanting, "You can't stop us" at the game. They see what's going on, and it's super impressive. I mean, they beat Clarkston 42-6 a week after Clarkston beat Woodland 42-6 or 44-6. So yeah. I mean, crazy to think that they could do the exact same thing that they had just done. But I mean, it's crazy. I mean, Peyton Davis, 173 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, all of them in the first half on 10 carries, averaging 17 yards per carry. You get contributions like that, and you got 5, 6, 7 running backs available, to run the ball, and it doesn't matter what string it is, first, second, third, fifth, 10th. They got guys all up and down the roster. They're well built. They're built for this run. They've already played North Kitsap and won by 20 on the road. It's going to take the most complete effort of North Kitsap, this season to come away with a victory. It's not to say it can't happen. But yeah, I think that honestly, in order for Tumwater to get beat, you kind of have to hope for them to kind of stub their toe a few times, and
someone's going to have to get an early lead on them.
Yeah, you gotta force them to play behind, the passing game a little bit more, because if they're able to run for even 5 yards per carry, I mean, no one's going to beat them. It doesn't matter who it is.
Right. Yeah. They're a team you're going to have to make play from behind, and they can pass. I mean, they don't do it often, but they're very efficient when they do. But, I mean, that's what it's going to take, is some team to jump out early on them and get a 10-point, 14-point lead, and make them have to make a little bit more aggressive decisions throughout the game offensively, and maybe set them behind the markers a little bit further with a few incompletions here or there, because that's something else they haven't really done, is throw many incompletions when they do pass, because it's usually so run heavy. They run a little play action, and Kasner's been super efficient for them, but that's really the only formula I see to beating a team like that at this point, is you're going to have to make a few big plays early that give you all the momentum.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan Kastner, the quarterback, I mean, he can make throws when he's asked to, but can he do it in a short amount of time, down a couple scores? I mean, that remains to be seen, because they haven't needed to see it.
Right.
Hasn't been needed. So as long as the running game is doing what it is, and they're efficient in protecting the football, they're going to be extremely difficult to beat. I mean, they were 5 for 5 on their first 5 drives, I think, for touchdowns, and amassed a 34-35 lead. So it's like, okay, well, let's start the bus and let's get ready, for the next one. And the bus just keeps moving down the road, man, at full speed. Tough to beat.
For sure. No, I've kind of always thought the whole season it's going to be one of these two teams on the other side of the bracket that it's going to take to knock them off.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the other side of the bracket now. Enumclaw Highline, we talked about it a little bit, when we opened up, but, Enumclaw does what they needed to do to win this game. They play super efficiently. They're able to run. They're able to throw. They build a good lead. And, they took a few punches from Highline as well. Highline didn't go down without a fight in this one. It's 41-30 as the final, but you've been banging the Enumclaw drum all season long, and, they're off to the semifinals for the second straight year, undefeated. Last year, they ran up against the number 1 seed and eventual state champion Linden Lions. And this year they're going to get another team from the Northwest Conference in Anacortes. Not sure what the result is going to be in terms of that game yet. We'll talk about that and what we think and what we feel. But tell me a little bit more about Enumclaw and how they've been able to get to this point once again, buddy.
Well, I started to write a whole article about all these games, and I started getting so in detail with it all. I was like, I got to just scrap this idea for now because it's going to take me way too much work. But when I look at Enumclaw, they remind me of like a 2002, 2001 to 2003 Oakland Raiders type team. I don't know if you recall the identity of those teams, but it was Rich Gannon running the play action and handing off to guys like Tyrone Wheatley and Charlie Garner. And they had I think their fullback was John Ritchie and, the Tim Browns, et cetera, et cetera. Great possession receivers on the outside. A strong
Tim Brown.
Yeah, Tim Brown and Jerry Rice was on that team at that point, but or right around that same era. But regardless, a lot of I formation, a lot of play action. They predicate everything off of the run out of the I formation because that Seamus Tui kid is like, freaking Mike Allstott in the flesh as far as high school players come, or I've said Donnie Billingsley before if we're going fictional characters, but beast. And then they've got multiple running backs. Tristan Donovan, I think, had 170 plus on Highline last week, right in that range. And then you look at the quarterback, Gunnar Trachty. He's 6'4", 215. He's a big kid. He's not super mobile necessarily, but he's accurate when he throws the ball, especially off of play action. They really love to run like those fades to the back corner, and he's usually delivering a perfectly on target ball. And just the style of football they play is complete. That's something that I have liked about them since last year. And, I think they were a better team than that score reflected against Linden, but they were also young, and it was kind of their first invitation to the party. And now you've got all the same kids that, frankly, knew what it was like to lose that game last year, minus like a Emmett Otero. And they run and tackle well on defense and, have multiple contributors. They aren't just like one of these, they aren't a team that's led by like one, main stud or a couple different studs, which, Highline has a lot of good players, but that was kind of like, their big thing. They got McCraney and they got a few other guys, but McCraney's their guy. And I think with Enumclaw, you can't really pinpoint one particular player because it's definitely a collective team effort.
It makes it very difficult to beat them, that's for sure, when you got multiple guys able to beat you in multiple ways. And they've been playing with the chip on their shoulder, I think all season long. And, for whatever reason, they went after yours truly, saying I've been sliding them, and I still don't know where that's coming from. Yes, I have picked against them. Last week was the first time all season long I picked against them, for the record. Every week other than that, I picked them to win from weeks 1 all the way down. So, I'm very much a believer in what they're doing. I'm very much a believer in them being a contender. You don't go undefeated and make it to the semifinals, one season because you're not a good team. And obviously, when we looked at the schedule this year, we were like, okay, well, they got Peninsula again. Get past this one. Probably going to be favored in every game you play. I could easily see them getting right back to that same spot. The question, and I think in most people's minds, has just remained is, what are they going to do when they go up against a team that is equally as talented as they are? And I think Highline was the closest to that so far this season. And I think you got to give Enumclaw a lot of credit for how they responded because, like I said, Highline was coming. There were a couple times that they were able to hit him with some big plays and, answer some shots that they were taking. And Enumclaw didn't panic. Playing at home, they didn't feel the pressure. They finished the game off like they should. And, you mentioned earlier about the PATs in the game and, Highline going for 2, it looked like in most every situation. And, not coming up with the points after the touchdown. Maybe it could have made the pressure seem a little bit more magnified, but I think Enumclaw was a game opponent and ready to go, and I'm really curious to see how it's going to go for them this next week in Anacortes.
Yeah, I kind of said last week, we know Enumclaw is going to want to impose their will, and they certainly did, halfway through that game. But testament to Highline's toughness and I think the attitude that Cooper has instilled in those kids that they're as talented as anybody and don't let anybody tell you otherwise and go put it on the field. But ultimately, like I said, there's just not a lot of holes to Enumclaw's game. They did get beat deep a couple times by Highline, in say the third quarter, and I think in the second quarter as well. But yeah, I mean, you look forward to this matchup this week with Anacortes. Equally as physical on defense. Run and hit is kind of their big thing, especially I know you watched their game with Ording last week, and I mean, I don't know what Ording's total yardage was. I would lead to believe that it was probably somewhere
under 100.
Oh, yeah, especially in the first half. It might have been 30, 40 yards. But, it's like – and then I've heard some rumblings from the Enumclaw crowd that they're like, Anacortes has kids just as fast as Highline, and they do. And I think what's going to make this such a great game is that Anacortes also has that really physical mantra that they've played defensively all season. Really, it's ultimately going to come down to who can, I think, stop the run better than the other team.
A lot remains to be seen. Let's talk real quick about that Ording Anacortes game. There was a lot of hype going into that game from I guess an Ording's going to be bringing the town with them type mentality, right? And Anacortes gave them all the smoke, quite literally.
Yeah. Purple smoke.
Brought out the purple smoke flare and, filled the atmosphere, and they busted out their Chewbacca pajamas and roared up and down the field, often. And you'll have to help me out. I apologize because it's hard for me to figure out, but the beaner that wears 32,
that's Brock.
Yeah, he had a real good game. There was a couple runs there, man, where he's just moving inside and then just all of a sudden cuts it to the outside, and he stays fast, and gets to the edge. Just a kind of a next level type runner, and when you were able to run the ball like that, and then you got a big wide receiver like Rylan Lang, and Rex was able to put, some balls down the field that were easily caught for touchdowns. I mean, it just makes it so difficult. And playing the shotgun wing tee, you don't see the shotgun wing tee very often, right? That Ording was running, but man, oh man, the defense was sound all night long. And Ording never really had moments that you look back on in the game and you're like, okay, I can see them winning this football game, right? I mean,
I don't think they tried to go more than 7 yards downfield the whole game.
I mean, well, I don't think that that's their style. I don't think that that's really what you want. I don't think that's what you want to do if you're them. I think that you want to live in that 2nd and 6 to 2nd and 5 range on first down, and that 3rd and 2 range, and hope that your body blows, end up taking over. Yeah, don't spill, buddy. Take it easy there.
I did too.
Yeah, dribbling down your chin, bro.
It was a little full.
Yeah, no, but hats off to Anacortes, and another great season for Ording, a great turnaround year. I think I said that they were a 1-win team the year before. I think it was actually 3. I think that they were a 3-win team the year before. Either way, still a great year for them. And they'll look to build on the young talent that they have on their roster. They have a lot of sophomores and juniors on their team, and they'll be back ready to go next year. But Anacortes just looked like a more complete team. And, you felt like the game was over when the defensive end tapped the ball up into the air to himself and returned it down to, what was it, the 3-yard line or something like that. I mean, at that moment, you felt like the game was over.
Yeah, and he's only a sophomore. And earlier in the game, he took a screen for, 66 yards down to the 3 or so, too.
Yeah,
they just had it. It's
physical.
You hear a lot, totally, and you hear
and
a lot
fast.
of the same. Yeah, that kid alone is a sophomore, and he's 6'4", probably 200 plus and has just come into his own the last few weeks. And, they've got some veteran presence, but they also have a lot of young talent that's coming along, like Luka too, being only a sophomore and holding down the safety spot that Idaho Vandal Hayden John vacated this year. And, the play hasn't fallen off whatsoever. It's like you touched on earlier. I mean, you can just tell that the culture that Port's built has just trickled into every little crack in that program, and they think they belong, and they really haven't played like they don't pretty much all year. I think we all looked at the Oak Harbor loss at the first couple of weeks, or not loss, but win. Oh, they should have beat them worse than that. That's not a good win. But I mean, ever since then, they've just steamrolled people in the same, twice as bad as say Linden did, with a few certain opponents across the whole slate, specifically like an Archbishop.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the question is going to come down to, which team has more playmakers. Obviously that's a pretty vague statement, especially when you're talking high school sports. It's like usually that's what it comes down to. Both teams play really disciplined football. As long as both teams are able to hold on to the ball and not turn it over, that was what killed Anacortes last season against North Kitsap, is the inability to take care of the football in a game that was close and winnable. The good news is that they played such a good regular season this year that they get to play this game at home, like literally at home. So, they get a chance to play for a state championship with a win over Enumclaw. And, Enumclaw's been very efficient all year long as well and hasn't shot themselves in the foot. And that's really what it's going to come down to in this game, is who can out execute and who's got better playmakers. And Brock and Brady are just juniors. Yeah. So, I mean,
Ryland's only a junior too.
Yeah. I mean, they got a lot of good players and they were there last year. And I'll tell you what, man, if Anacortes is able to get to the championship this year, I mean, depending on how it goes, against Tumwater, because I'm assuming that's who it is, but Tumwater or North Kitsap, right? It'd be a great story, actually, if it's North Kitsap, to have them play one another again, after losing to them the year before. It really would fit their unfinished business hashtag very well. Chance to play them again, and it really can fix their business. By the way, I'm trying to match Tyson with the beard now. I switched from just the mustache to the beard. I just noticed how, we're kind of mocking each other a little bit, except you didn't go with the man bun. So,
it's not that long. It's starting to curl over the ears, but yeah, I've never had it that long in the back to
party in the front. Oh no, business in the front, party in the back. Right. And that's what here we go.
Yeah.
Let's go to 3A real quick. We'll go.
I think man bun is more like casual in the front, hippie in the back.
Yeah, type yes or no for the man bun.
You might have to show it here.
Oh yeah, there it is right there.
There you go.
Yeah, it's all there. It's tied up, man. All girly. 3A, yeah. O'Day dispatches Garfield rather easily, 41-10. Not a lot to talk about really there. I mean, we felt O'Day was this good the entire time. Their defense has just been phenomenal this year. I mean, teams are just not scoring on them. Yelm was in a dogfight against Mount Tahoma. They ultimately won it, 29-12, but Mount Tahoma had it a 1-point game in the first half for a better part of the entire first half.
It's the second week in a row that's happened to Yelm.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's more of a testament to how good Mount Tahoma has been this year. They were a very, very, very pleasant surprise this year.
Super battle tested.
Yeah. And I think you got to give Yelm a lot of credit for being able to dig deep and just win the football game, survive and advance. They can't all be 55, 56, nothing, unless you're Tumwater. Other than that, and 3A is a whole different animal, right? When you're going into the quarterfinals and you're, approaching the semifinals. And then Eastside Catholic beating Kennewick 17-7. I talked about that a little bit earlier, but just to recap again, and Eastside Catholic gets out to a 10-0 lead in that game. Kennewick answers with a touchdown. But ultimately, what the problem was is that Kennewick turned the ball over way too many times. You know, we want to talk about teams shooting themselves in the foot. I think they had 4 or 5 turnovers in that game, and you know, some interceptions ultimately doing them a lot of harm. And Eastside Catholic able to ice the game away on the ground. They got a 41-yard touchdown run by Burrows, first name Jeremiah Burrows, you know, with just a couple of minutes left in the game, and you know, elusive breaking tackles and near the line of scrimmage to get to the end zone on that play. So I mean, Eastside Catholic ends up getting a hard fought victory over a Kennewick team that most people thought, you know, was going to compete for a state championship. Matt picked them to win the state championship. Rest in peace, Matt's 3A pick, but you know, that's the way it goes. And then Bellevue, you know, they proved me wrong. I mean, I didn't doubt them, right? I mean, I felt like it was going to be a super close game, and I just kind of thought Arlington had ascended to their level to where they could win the game against them and had the home field advantage. But ultimately, you know, it's still Bellevue, O'Day, Eastside Catholic, and Yelm, you know, when the dust settles. And you look at what Central Catholic did to West Lynn, and, you know, Bellevue playing Central Catholic this year and last year. I mean, nearly beating Lake Stevens. Bellevue might be the best team in the state.
They might be. We don't, I mean, yeah, they were a second half hiccup away from being undefeated in the state and then barely losing to the best team. Well, probably the best team in Oregon. I think that we'll find that out this weekend, but
no, they're eliminated. Westland's out.
No, I know, but
Central Catholic. Yes, excuse me. Yes, my bad. Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think wasn't that a 3-point game or something for the second year in a row?
Between Central Catholic and Bellevue.
Yeah,
I'd have to go back and look to see. I don't remember that one off the top of my head, actually.
I'm trying to pull it up right now. I know it was a pretty close game, so you know, for Central Catholic being as good as they are, undefeated, got a title game, I believe it is, with Tualatin, right?
Yep.
Yep. A team that played Lincoln earlier this year in a close one, but they beat Bellevue more soundly, 48-27 this year. But I think last year it was a 3-point game. So, you know,
it was.
There's
I think it was a 2-point game. Didn't they? I'm pretty sure Bellevue
21-19.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Bellevue. I thought that was like 26-24.
Let's see. I'll tell you in just a second. It was 24-23, 1-point game. I think Bellevue might have gone for 2 too, but regardless, it's last year. But still, you know, sneakiest 2-loss team in the state, I would say, other than maybe a Nooksack.
Yeah, no, iced tea's not making me tired. Getting up at 5 in the morning is making me tired. Yeah, you know, it's interesting to see that Bellevue is right back in the position that they have always been, and that's in contention for a state championship. You know, they're the one team that I think gets overlooked more than any other team in 3A, and it's because of how they schedule, and it's because of back-to-back seasons they ended up, you know, losing 2 of their first 3 games. They were 1-2 last year. They're 1-2 this year. It's just kind of crazy. On, you know, we kind of put them in the back of our mind, like, yeah, they're there, but like, how good are they really? You know, and
yeah,
I think Arlington has taken a lot of steps in the right direction as a program, and you know, 35-17 is a convincing win for Bellevue here in that one. And you know, they had a big offensive line going into this season, and you know, Riker Moon's been playing really good, and obviously the quarterback Rizzori playing great too. It's a tough team to beat. Interesting to see how it goes between them and O'Day.
I think we tend to overlook Bellevue at the 3A level because we know what their identity is every single year, and we tend to think, well, these other teams, they cycle through different players and they're a little bit more fluid, and you know, maybe ultimately they're a little bit more explosive and yada yada yada. But it's, I mean, to go back to the whole wing, why do people choose wing T thing? It's like, well, because you can be Bellevue and you can be a public school that for the last 50 years has been at the top of competition level. I mean, that goes back to when my dad played at Newport, basically. That Bellevue was the dog. I remember as a kid living in Anacortes, we had a team from Anacortes. It was probably like 2001, 2002. That was pretty good. And we were in 3A, and I remember going to the game. I think Ryan Long, the Outland Trophy winner from WSU, Anacortes alum, was on the team. And we went down to Bellevue, and they blew the doors off of us. It was like 52-7, and it's like, it's funny that the team like that does get overlooked, because in terms of having staying power, there you can't even mention another school in that same breath.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to this game against Arlington, I mean, Bellevue just did it on the ground, 354 yards. Excuse me. Woo! 354 yards rushing. 4 different players scoring a touchdown on the ground. Sophomore Max Jones with 103 rushing yards, and then senior Carson Rubin, 99 yards rushing. Blake Teets, 76 yards rushing. So a lot of different contributors on the ground attack, and scoring 35 against Arlington. That was the most that Arlington had allowed on the defensive side of the ball all year. And Bellevue's been playing a steady diet of Wesco teams here in the postseason. They outscored them a combined 133-31. I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due, and the wing T rushing attack has been something that Bellevue has hung its hat on for so many years, and it just proves so difficult to defend against. Again, it's just a well-oiled machine. Thank you, Josh. I do need blessings. That's for damn sure.
Well, hey, speaking of wing T, I mean, let's segue into probably my biggest shock of 4A, unless you have something else to add.
No, go ahead.
Gonzaga Prep and Graham Kapowsin. Mm-hmm. I mean, this was a game Gonzaga Prep led for the first half. I want to say it was 14-6. I might have that a point off or so. My elephant memory maybe isn't quite so elephantish. But, and then ultimately there's the explosiveness of Graham Kapowsin's offense. I saw like kind of a swing screen that went to Jabez Woods for like 65, 70 yards for Graham Kapowsin, I think, to tie it. And then later Super Alice, I think, ran one to get that touchdown that ultimately took the lead for them. But, I think that game kind of taught us I don't want to be too brash because I kind of said this last week, but I think we definitely did overlook or oversell the SPSL all year. Mm-hmm. We know Graham Kapowsin's really good. Like, I'm not saying no, they're not good. They only won 2014, but it just showed how even with all the targets and prospects and good players that program has, they're human. They're not unbeatable. Gonzaga Prep kind of virtually plays nobody that's up to their level of competition over in Spokane, but took a trip down to Inglewood where the Seahawks just played this weekend and played a tough team from down there and went undefeated the rest of the year and really had GK probably up against the ropes as much as anybody did all year besides maybe Curtis or Sumner. Mm-hmm. And I was really shocked that was such a close game. I kind of thought they'd give them a game, but I didn't think they were going to be winning at halftime.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a lot of people that would agree with that sentiment because of how explosive we've seen GK's offense be this year and the unknowns and uncertainties with the Gonzaga Prep. I mean, we have talked a lot about what the best way is to, approach a team like that with a high-powered offense, and that's just to keep the ball away from them. Best you can is figure out a way to run the football and move the chains, go on 7-8 minute drives if you can, and try to come up with timely stops. And for the first half, that formula was working great for Gonzaga Prep.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 20-14, I think Prep had a chance with the ball in the last couple minutes and just ultimately couldn't convert on fourth down and came up short. But, it's It's a testament to GK too. I mean, much like Yelm in the 3A class, they've had more than one game this year where they were kind of pinned up against a wall at halftime and eating some punches from that other team, and ultimately looking like, we're no better than they are, but pinned their ears back, made the plays when they counted, and won the game. It maybe wasn't the prettiest score or anything, but there's something that has to be said for that ability to kind of dig deep when it feels like this just isn't your day.
I mean, they played the gauntlet schedule, in terms of playing Curtis, in terms of playing Emerald Ridge, and, now Gonzaga Prep. And I feel another sneeze coming on here. So, yeah.
I think you're allergic. You must be allergic to the twisted teas.
I guess so. They got me all twisted, right? So
you need some 10-pin gutter balls in Moses Lake.
Hey, I like it. So I don't throw gutter balls though when I go bowling, bro. That's
you probably would after having a few of these things. You'd be in the other lane.
No shot. I can bowl 200 left-handed, bro.
No way.
Yeah.
What are you doing podcasting on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights? And you should be in a bowling league.
No way, man. The house lanes out here, too easy. Wait till you go on like the professional bowlers tour, like Ernie McCracken, dude. Ain't no chance. No, those professionals are freaking ringers, man. Ain't no way.
I've got a few buddies that play in a league, and one of them's they're both really good. I think they're, 200 plus averages, and it's like that's insane.
Yeah,
I've had good days, but I could never average that. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean I average like about 190, something like that.
That's good, dude. You could be anchoring a team somewhere down there in Vancouver.
I'll be a sandbagger.
Yeah. Do horrible so you get a better handicap.
That's what you do though. Like
yep.
dead serious. Yeah. No, I mean there's dudes that sandbag for sure. I mean the first couple of weeks when you're getting your averages lined out and your handicap lined out, man, I would go out there and bowl left-handed, honestly. But I still guarantee that if I bowled left-handed, I would get like at least a 160 average, at least.
That's pretty impressive.
Oh,
without bumpers.
Without bumpers, of course, bro.
Well, hey, you have a son. You might bowl with bumpers every time you go these days. I don't know.
My son had a bowling birthday party, and he turned 9, and we had a couple of his friends come out, obviously, and had a couple of lanes rented. And, I try to teach him the right way to do things, regardless if he struggles, So the last couple of years, we've been practicing without bumpers and getting his form all down and stuff. Bro, he looked like a freaking professional compared to the kids that were bowling with him. They couldn't hit a pin to save their life without bumpers. They were asking me to go to the desk to put bumpers on. I'm like, whoa, no, we're not doing that. It's like we're going all the way. And he had like 70 or something like that for his score, and that's not like super good, but I mean, for his age, it's not bad. It's pretty good actually.
Sure, yeah, shoot, even throwing an 8-pound ball's not easy for a kid that age.
Yeah, I think he throws an 8, but anyway, I digress. Bowling's awesome. Love bowling. Been doing it for a long time. I broke my arm a long time ago, so that's why I could bowl left-handed. Because
breaking news. Breaking news: bowling podcast starts December 6th.
Yeah, bro. Bowling season just started too for girls. So,
are you gonna stream any of those games?
Don't tempt me.
That actually could be kind of a decent time, honestly.
Oh, I would definitely make a good time out of it. That's for damn sure. So, but yeah, back to Graham.
We got 2 more left in 4A before we dive further into bowling.
Yeah, Graham Kapowski's still really good. Gonzaga Prep, obviously a contender. Played like a contender. Defense was awesome. Beat Chiawana a week ago. So great season for the Bull Pups. Another great name. Love the name. But GK survives, and they advance, and now they're going to take on Eastlake. And Eastlake had themselves one heck of a tough game against Skyview, and Skyview we picked last week. We're going to get clowned on again by the Eastlake, Twitter feed, and which we should. But ultimately, Skyview had a chance to, really win this game, Tyson, and they had a lead in this one. 3rd and goal from the 1, and they end up throwing an interception in the end zone. I mean, ultimately, it was just too much for them to recover from that. The momentum lost at that point, and everything going to Eastlake's side there. I mean, you got to give the Wolves credit. They're back into the semifinals. I think second time in 3 seasons. So yeah. Congratulations to Eastlake. They move on. 17-14. I have 21-14 last week. 21 something like that. Skyview.
You said. Let's see. I got on the wrong side of the paper here. You had 21-13. We both had 21-13 in that game. That was the one where we agreed.
Double down.
Yeah. Yeah. Both had Skyview. So put it on your feed if you want to. But I mean, Eastlake's a really complete team too. They kind of play all phases really well. They can throw it, they can run it. They played hard-nosed defense, and let's not forget their one loss was to Lake Stevens, and I think it was a 1-score game.
Yeah, they look pretty good, Lake Stevens. So I mean, I think you got to consider Eastlake very capable of winning this game against Graham Kapowson, and the defense played great against Skyview again, and they've had back-to-back 3-point wins. They're battle-tested. When you play close games like that, you don't crack under pressure. In fact, they rise up to the pressure. 1-score game against Lake Stevens earlier this year. You got to like where the Wolves are at this point in the tournament. They got a realistic chance of making it to the championship game.
Oh, for sure. And they've got wins like Mount Tahoma, Skyline, Woodinville, Lake Stevens. That's already their first 4 out of 6 games were against playoff opponents. Then you add Mount Si into the equation. There's another one, Bothell. That's their first 6 out of their first 8 games were they only played. The only teams they didn't play that weren't playoff. Excuse me, I'm talking too quick. The only games that they played against teams that weren't playoff contenders were Kentwood, North Creek, Issaquah, and Federal Way, and they are sitting at 11-1. So 8 games against playoff caliber teams this year. Pretty impressive.
James says he wanted Skyview to win. That just didn't happen, James.
Nope, we did too for the sake of being made fun of on Twitter, but
it wasn't a matter of that we wanted them to win. It's just that's who we picked to win, and
right.
I'm wrong. James also typed out nobody fucks with the Jesus. Yeah, that's true.
Big Lebowski quotes.
You got it, bro. Yeah,
nice.
Absolutely pulling it out.
In that respect, James ought to pour himself a White Russian.
James has been boozing it up on martinis tonight, he said.
Oh, boy. You might as well throw a little milk in there and call it a White Russian.
You can tell he's boozing up on martinis because he says Eastlake thinks that they are cool. I kind of hope Graham Kapowson beats Eastlake. But, yeah, it says they're going to beat either one of them. Man, what position do you play, James? Linebacker?
We're going to be either
linebacker?
He's our slot receiver.
Bro, I had White Russians 3 days ago. Nice. I love it. Yeah, Kamaikan 8-6 over Mount Si, one of those teams that you just mentioned as a playoff team that has been beaten by Eastlake. Not a lot to talk about here, in terms of how the game played out, other than the fact it was played and it ended, and it was 8-6, and Kamaikan won it. But their defense has been the story for them all season long. And that was, what they were going to hang their hat on from the early parts of the season in terms of what their outlook was. When you look at how they played against Moses Lake, you knew their defense was going to be tough because, how explosive Moses Lake's offense was this year. Ultimately,
can I just say, even though Moses Lake didn't get in, that's a testament to how good they really were this season. For all the standing that I did and caught flack for early in the year, Moses Lake is one of Kamaikan's only 2 losses. So let's just reiterate that. And they're a semifinal team.
What does that mean? It
means Moses Lake was legit. So
if they were
all the flack was unwarranted.
If they were legit, they would be here.
Hey, I'm not making an excuse for any of that, but I'm just goes to show how competitive 4A can be on this side of the mountains. You got a team that beat one team that didn't even get in.
They lost to Chihuahua, yes.
In the crossover, yeah, the game I was at, and Hunter Taylor had like 70 carries for 260 yards.
I remember. Yeah, they shouldn't even have been playing in that game, but that's just the way it worked out. So
Yeah. Not to get too far off topic, but shout out to Moses Lake. Good community, good coach, great guy.
Kyson Thomas, preferred walk-on, Eastern Washington, bro.
It won't be the last. It shouldn't be the last one. Let's put it that way. I don't know. I can see him playing all sorts of different places. But on the Kamaikan side, we talked about it earlier. Anytime you got a kid playing cornerback that's getting looks from all the premier schools on the West Coast, I'll be interested to see who he draws. Is it David Brown? David Brown's a great player for Lake Stevens, 6'3" wide receiver and safety, defensive back. But I think ultimately the catalyst of this game comes down to two different players, and it's Lamar from Arlington. It's right up Highway 9 from Lake Stevens, whatever. Lamar from Lake Stevens, and it's all part of the same traffic corridor. Let's put it that way. I used to drive it all the time. But Lamar, can he run the ball effectively against Kamaikan to open up maybe more of the passing game, because Kamaikan is pretty strong against the pass? And can Camden Schmidt roll through Lake Stevens like he has everybody else over the last few weeks offensively? That's kind of my key points of that game. It, again, boils down to kind of who can run the ball better, because I think we know Lake Stevens is better at throwing the ball, but Kamaikan is really good against the pass. So actually, that conference in general is just amazing against the pass. I mean, Chihuahua had 35 interceptions this year, and 11 of them went for touchdowns.
Well, your boy Colton Matson was 16 of 19 for 290 and 4 touchdowns in the first half in that 44-21 win this last week over Kennedy Catholic for Lake Stevens. Obviously, Matson can throw the football, and obviously he can be very efficient with it. You got 16 completions going for 290 yards. Very impressive yards per attempt, yards per completion. I was really impressed with Mount Si's defensive effort so far here in the postseason, going on the road against a tough Camas team this year, and then going on the road, and then being at home against Kamaikan, holding that offense to 8 points. And ultimately, they would have obviously liked to have had a few more points in that game to come away with the win. But as a 14 seed, Mount Snoqualmie, nothing to hang their head about. Great season, tough place to play. It's hard to gather a lot out of a game when it's 8-6, except for the fact that both teams played spectacular defense against one another. And, you got to believe that Kamaikan is going to come with that same mentality of what they're going to have to hang their hat on and win this football game. Obviously, they're going to need to come up with more than 8 points to win this one. Realistically, they're probably going to need to score at least 24-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I would be at, if I was predicting them to have a chance to win the game. Just looking at Lake Stevens' worst performance this year, I mean, it's still close. It's still above that, So I mean, it's tough. It's a tall task. When Lake Stevens is going out and beating Kennedy Catholic and up 44-0 at halftime, and then they beat Woodville 41-0. Their starters have done pretty much whatever they want on both sides of the ball so far, and they've been playing phenomenal this year. There's no reason to think that they aren't going to be extremely difficult to beat this coming week.
Yeah, definitely. It'll by far be the best test that Kamaikan has had all year. I think you got to give Lake Stevens the favorite nod on this one, being at home, by 14 plus points. But, would I be surprised if it's closer than that? No.
Well, you shouldn't be.
I think one thing I can say faithfully and kind of stand by through the results throughout the season, defense has been played better east of the mountains than it has west. Yeah. And that's not just because I live over here. It's just look at the results of when the teams have matched up neck and neck, whether it's the regular season or some of these postseason matchups. It's like defense has been the catalyst. I mean, just the score against Emerald Ridge and Kamaikan was a bit higher than I probably would have thought, it would have been if Kamaikan was going to win that game per se. But most of that scoring was in like the last 5-6 minutes. They virtually shut Emerald Ridge down for 3.5 quarters. So the odds for that one to be one of the biggest blowouts, I think, is there. But there's dudes on Kamaikan. The one thing we didn't even mention yet is that I would have loved to have seen in that Mount Si Kamaikan matchup is the trench play overall, because Kamaikan has a great offensive and defensive line, some kids that play both ways, and then Mount Si has a kid that's going to Oklahoma to play offensive tackle, and multiple other players. So, I mean, I bet that was just an absolute slog and a war down low.
I bet you're right. Happy birthday to Auntie M. It was her birthday yesterday, according to James. They had lemon drops to celebrate. One of our loyal watchers and Lake Stevens hardcore
Auntie M's
fans.
not checking in. She must be playing bunco or something.
Yeah. Well, hey, maybe Hell's Kitchen's on special Tuesday night edition.
Could
Bunco.
Every woman in my family, I think, has been a part of a bunco group at some point in their life.
Yeah. No, I would. When I get older, I just want to sit around and play cribbage with my son. That'd be kind of like my go-to. I got like a super old cribbage board back here on my dresser. My grandpa made it, and like after he passed away, I totally grabbed it. So.
Heck yeah, I've got one I made in wood shop in high school that we play on still.
Yeah, I'm a big.
We use
big
the
fan of
backside as a cutting board every now and again.
Oh
no, I'm just kidding. It's solid enough wood though. You definitely could.
Yeah, I like
cribbage is
wood.
a very underrated game.
Yeah, no, super underrated. Yeah, so I guess we should come to the segment where I make a complete ass of myself, and we could make some picks and talk a little bit about our brackets a little bit here. Let's wind on back down to 2B, and let's work our way back up to the top once again, just so we can get the 2B crowd off to bed early here. I hear you ripping some paper.
Yes, sir. I'm making sure I write down our picks.
James says she's very tired. She loves your show, but she's sleeping. What about Auntie? We said happy birthday to Auntie. James, wake up. You sure you're not sleeping?
He's nodding off.
Yeah. I guess taking frequent naps is something that I'm going to do when I'm James's age, probably. But I am also going to drink a lot too. We should have a podcast about bowling and drinking. That'd be a great podcast.
You know what they say about bowling, right? If you have your own ball and your own shoes, you probably have no friends.
Yeah,
I didn't deliver it quite as well as Jim Gaffigan does, but that's a whole bit that he does.
Yeah, I also would like to do a podcast on like comedy movie villains, because I would probably have like my one seeds be like Ernie McCracken and then Shooter McGavin, or maybe like White Goodman from Dodgeball. Those would be 3 solid comedy movie villains.
Yeah, Goodman definitely would be up there for sure.
Yeah, no, yeah. Involuntary spasm. Enjoy the show.
How about the Warden from The Longest Yard Volume 2?
No comparison to those 3. None. I mean, decent for what it is, but no comparison. You know?
That was a very good movie. I just watched it again the other day, and I mean, from a talent being shown in a football movie, that's got to be up there for top notch. I mean, you got Michael Irvin, Mawson kids, and Nelly out there looking like the best scat back of all time.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah, you actually have a real football player out there too, besides Michael Irvin.
Multiple.
Bob Sapp played for the University of Washington.
Bosworth's in that movie. And
No,
obviously,
Bill Romanowski's in that movie.
Romanowski's in it. Yep. And then you've got Terry Crews was a football player too at one point before he became famous on White Chicks. And what's the other one? America's Got Talent or Dancing with the Stars or something that he's
So
on these days?
he actually got his first movie role in Training Day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was one of the muscled up guys in the Compton neighborhood.
I did not know that. That's a fun fact.
Yeah. He talks about it, But yeah, so let's 2B. Let's 2B it up.
Let's
To
go.
be determined. So let's start with the 1 seed Royal taking on the 12 seed Seton Catholic.
That's 1A. You're thinking Napavine on Alaska.
I'm thinking Napavine and on Alaska. My mistake. Yes. Yeah. So much for that elephant memory. So let's see here. I project Napavine winning it. And I'm going to go 47-12.
47-12. All right. I like it.
That's a big spread. I feel like a total ass even saying that out loud, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
I'm gonna say 41-15.
Okay.
Napavine, of course, to make it clear.
So 26 points, huh? Wow. Yeah. Kind of in that neighborhood, aren't we?
Yeah.
All right. Northwest Christian Okanagan in the Wenatchee Bowl.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, let's do it, man. By the way, I had Napavine in the championship, so sticking with it. I have Napavine winning the championship, so see if I stick with it after this week.
I'm going to say Okanagan 35, Northwest Christian 31.
I have Okanagan in the championship game on my bracket. Love Northwest Christian. Love the story. I think I agree with you. I think Okanagan wins this one. I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 28-17.
All right. Locked in. Lower scoring than a lot of games have been.
Tyson says that you always go first. Well, I don't know what that's in reference to.
Coming from Josh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Good question.
Okay. Yeah, great.
You go first on this one, Royal and Seton Catholic.
Well, I'm gonna pick Royal in this one. I just see it being a real tough game here for Seton Catholic. 42-10.
I like the score of 42, but Seton Catholic can score. I'm saying 42-28.
I like it. Let's go Seton Catholic. Make it close. I love it. I'd like to see yours play out a little bit more than mine, but yeah. Royal's a very complete football team on both sides of the ball. So
yeah. All right, my turn. Nooksack and Lakeside. Boy.
Ooh.
I'm going to go 28-13 Nooksack.
So, yeah, I did not have either of these teams.
We got Nooksack winning it all.
Yeah, I did not have either of these teams in this spot. I do have Royal in the championship, winning the championship. I think that Lakeside is very, very, very real and very good. I think this is going to be a very, very close game. I'm going to go Nooksack 24-21.
All All right, Tumwater, North Kitsap. Let me write the rest of these down here.
We're boring. We all picked the same.
Well, hey, at least we're not fully eating chalk. I mean, we both took Nooksack. They're a 6 seed. Tumwater, North Kitsap. Boy. Oh, I feel bad. I'm going to say 35-10 Tumwater.
Oof. $38-20 Tumwater.
You think they're going to score 20 on them?
There's garbage time.
That's true. No offense to North Kitsap. Tumwater just appears to be that good.
Yeah, I mean, none of this is offensive. Like, that's not the goal of this. It's like, if you want to, like, accounts, take it offensively and use it as bulletin board material or whatever. I'm all for it. Yeah. Anything that I say that's wrong, put it out there. Let everybody know how much I suck. That's what everyone does for, anybody who picks against their team for like college game day or, for the NFL or anything like that, I mean, put it out there. Tumwater is a super, super good, football team. So, I mean, it's just doesn't mean it can't happen. Doesn't mean it can't happen.
Yeah, not many teams have been more dominant this season, game after game. That's for sure. All right, you get to go first on Anacortes and Enumclaw.
Ooh. All right, so the vote has caught up. All right. So apparently the entire internet was out in Enumclaw earlier. So we've had 164 votes on this game. I put this up on my poll. And earlier it was all Anacortes. Well, guess what? Now, after 164 votes, Enumclaw has 56.7% of the vote. Anacortes has 43.3%. And we still have 18 hours left of voting. So get on my Twitter page. It's @media_N2. If you're not following it, I don't like you right now. So you need to be following my page. Same thing goes for Tyson. Yeah, I put this poll up there because this was honestly like one of the harder games for me to decide on. So far out of all the games that we've picked, this is the one where I'm like most not sure, honestly. With that being said, I got Anacortes winning this one 37-28.
All right. Yeah, this is a matchup that I think probably on our preseason show I talked about wanting to see. I wanted to see Anacortes play Enumclaw. I wanted to see Anacortes play Highline, basically throwing them all into that same group as like the new risers per se, compared to Tumwater and Blinden and how like apparent they've been in these situations over the years. That said, all bias aside here, if I'm going to throw one game on the dartboard to watch this weekend, maybe even over Yelm and Eastside Catholic or O'Day Bellevue, I think it's Anacortes and Enumclaw. You're going to see very complete football teams. Not to drag out my score too far, I'm going to say Anacortes 28, Enumclaw 22.
Anacortes over Enumclaw.
Yep, I think it's going to be a game of who has the ball last. That's for sure.
James's pick is Enumclaw will win it. James, do you have Twitter? Go to my page and vote for Enumclaw. Anyway, Claw dogs. Yeah, the White Claws.
Yeah. Yelm and Eastside Catholic.
The Bear Claws.
The Bear Paws.
Bear Paws.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into really tough territory, by the way. That last game was tough. But, yeah. Ooh, this is tough, bro. Rematch time. I went first last time. You're picking this first.
I took Yelm to win it all in my bracket. At the beginning of the year, I took O'Day preseason, but learning more about the Yelm culture and getting to talk to their coach just had me a little more fired up for their program. I'm taking Yelm 29-20. Ultimately, I think they score to take the lead, go for two, get it. At some point, go for two and get it. Eastside Catholic has to do the same to match them, doesn't get it, and that's why you get a 9-point game.
Bro, come on. You're such a kiss ass, dude. You did the same thing for Aiden Brown and Kalama when they were going up against Napavine, and I was the only one with the brain on his heads and was like, no, Napavine is going to win that game. Stop. With that being said, I got Yelm winning this one as well. I think it's going to be absolute dogfight. I would not be shocked. I'm going last year's score, 20-13 Yelm.
All right, I like it.
I also have Yelm in the championship, so I'm standing by it. I just wanted to make everybody think that I was going to rip you apart and then pick opposite of you, but in fact, I'm just going to pick with you.
2-point differential and spread on that one. Probably the hardest game to pick. You go first.
I mean, the brackets played out exactly how I thought it would, except I had Arlington here instead of Bellevue. With that being said, I'm still going O'Day. The defensive side of the ball is what wins it over for me. And I believe that O'Day's defense is best in probably the state. So I'm going with O'Day to win this one. And 28-21.
Well, my differential is not too far off. I'm taking O'Day by 14, 34-20.
You and Travis have got the same freaking score, man. 14-point spread.
Travis.
Oh, no, excuse me. Not Travis. Josh.
Did he drop a score? I never saw one on here.
Earlier he said O'Day by 14.
Oh, yeah. I think Bellevue's good, but I mean, you got a dog that's still got pretty fresh legs in Jason Brown. He hasn't had to carry the ball that much this year. And
bro, their defense is so good. It doesn't even matter, right? I mean, it really doesn't. They'll figure out a way to score 15 points and beat you.
Yeah. Well, and if you got to feed him the ball 30 times in a game to win, I think he's obviously plenty capable when you hold offers from Oregon and Alabama and Michigan State and Washington and every big Power 5 school in the country. Those don't come around very often.
Bro, you pissed off Josh, dude. Stealing his point spread. What are you doing?
Taking insider tips over here.
We're up to 172 votes on the Enumclaw Anacortes game. We've got some picks coming in 42-40 in favor of Enumclaw on the road. We've also got a pick of 31-28 from Chill Dog Anacortes. Jake Moe 28-21 Anacortes. By the way, that Enumclaw pick coming from Dennis Polinsky, verified. Love it. Brian Levesky says it doesn't matter. Nobody touches T-Bird football. Book it. So we'll see how it goes. So get on there and make sure you're voting on the Enumclaw Anacortes game. Share it with your friends on your timeline. It's going to be a big, 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 big game. Speaking of big games, buddy, we got the biggest class here to pick. 2 more games to go. Have we picked a game opposite yet? I don't think we have.
No, we have not.
This is boring.
Hey, you get that.
All right, what do we got here?
It's not as easy to pick the upsets.
All right, so the only reason why I have one different from you is because all the teams that I picked to win the state championship are still here.
Same.
So I'm not backing off of that.
Except
That's
for
just
1A.
Well, one of them wasn't there. I got Royal winning it, so I mean I still picked them.
Oh,
obviously.
you do. Well,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. I was thinking preseason. You picked LC.
No, yes, preseason. Yes,
Yeah.
I did. But my preseason picks for every other class are alive and well. So
Same.
We got the tape. All right, we can run it back for everybody. You can go back and watch episode 1, which I recommend that you do. So we don't know shit, right? Remember, we don't know what we're talking about. Just keep that in mind. Lake Stevens hosting Kamiakin. I got Lake Stevens. Got him in the championship. Let's do it. Lake Stevens 34. Kamiakin 16.
It's bigger than I got it. I'm taking Lake Stevens 27-13. I think ultimately Matson's arm just converts on a few big plays, and that's the difference of the game.
East Lake. Graham Kapowson, Art Crate Field.
Want me to go first?
Yeah, go first.
I think it's going to be a close game because that's what East Lake does to people.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say Graham Kapowson, and it's my preseason pick. It's my bracket pick, 21-17.
31-28, GK.
31-28?
Yeah, I had Graham Kapowson in Lake Stevens in the beginning of the year. I think I'll have to. Actually, no, wait, no. I take it back. I'm wrong. I had Emerald Ridge preseason, so I'm a liar on that front. So if you do go back and watch week 1, you will hear me say Emerald Ridge. So yeah, but when we came out with the bracket, I had Graham Kapowson over Lake Stevens. So I'm picking GK to win this one. Although I would not be surprised if East Lake wins this one. I really wouldn't.
No, not at all. Just showing how tough they played Lake Stevens. It's like you can play a team like Lake Stevens that tough. I expect you to do the same with GK.
Yeah. So we're boring. We didn't corroborate. We ended up picking the same. So we win nothing. We lose everything all at the same time. So good deal.
Hey, at least the pick 'em profit is already settled.
Yo, next week though, we're gonna probably have some differences. I have a feeling.
So sad, but breaking news. I don't think I'll be able to do a show next week. I'm gonna be in Florida until Friday. I leave on Friday and then get back on Friday.
You leave this Friday?
Yeah. So if we're able to convene,
you're doing a show from Florida, bro.
That would be pretty wild. I'm not bringing any of my equipment though. Is the problem? I could probably do a call in.
Your phone, bro. Your phone's all the equipment that you need. How do you think we've been interviewing all of these people?
That's true. I could do it from my phone, but I couldn't do a whole show. Let's put it that way, because it's going to be 1 o'clock in the morning by the time we get done.
Listen, all we got to do is just talk about the state championship games, and that's it. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 8 less games next week to worry about.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let me tell you this much, right? If Anacortes is in the championship, there ain't no way you're taking that show off.
Well, the one thing I do know is I will be at the game if that's the case on Saturday at Husky Stadium, and however other many games I can watch that day would be great. I do have to be back to Kennewick by 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, so my schedule's starting to get a little crazy, but do what I can.
Yeah, I thought that I was going to be at the University of Washington for state championship day, but
if Anacortes is there, which is why I would be there, you have to be there. We could do a little pregame show if we really wanted to, with Lake Washington in the background.
Just a
thought. Yeah, not Mont Lake Terrace, the Mont Lake. But
yeah, it's an option. Little sailgate.
Yeah, for sure. But we'll figure out that part when we get to it. I just know I'll be pretty busy next week, and it might get in the way. But if it doesn't, we'll definitely, at the very least, I can lock in a post-championship show where I would like to, like we talked about, maybe get the winning coach from each classification to come on the show for 20 minutes or so. That would be a lot of fun. Give them their post-game press conferences.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping to be able to, maybe do some broadcasting for the championship weekend, but we'll see how that goes. And I got a 5-1 Kelsey Youth basketball 3rd grade boys team to continue to coach. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, you should have seen us, bro. We dominated game 1, but then we had to hold on to win game 2. We were up 16-2 at halftime, and it was game 2, and the other team, it was their first game of the day, and they had like 12 guys on their roster. We had 7. One guy didn't show up. We have 8 on our team normally, and man, kids' legs were gone. Shots weren't falling. We were giving up second chance points. It was like, but I never doubted them. Kid came out of nowhere with about a minute left in the game after they got an offensive rebound, and he jumped up and blocked the shot. And then I'm like, all right, let's just run the clock down. let's just get out of here and call this a day.
For sure. That's tired. Two basketball games in one day is a lot.
Oh yeah, they're back.
No matter what age you are.
Yeah, they were sweating, tired. They got well-deserved bottles of Prime afterwards. Just so you know,
you can't be giving them Prime. That stuff's bad for them.
Bro, our offensive set is literally called Prime. The offense we run is called Prime.
All right, Jeff Bezos.
Bro, I did it because it's like a trigger word, man. The kids know that word. They're like, yeah. We got Prime, boys. We got Prime. They get all pumped up about it, so it's easy for them to remember.
So you're telling me you can't name it Body Armor or Gatorade? It just won't have the same effect?
Bro, come on. We ain't trying to get the old, non-coconut water-based energy drinks out here. Bro, this is all strategically planted in kids'
Body Armor is coconut water. Body Armor's got coconut, and it was made by Kobe. That's way better than freaking the Paul brothers.
I agree with that.
Biggest frauds in media history.
Twitch, I like it. That's a good, yeah.
Twitch. We live stream on Twitch. That's a good plug there, Josh.
We do live stream on Twitch. We are currently live streaming on Twitch, of which nobody watches it on Twitch for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I'm not doing a good job of promoting it and stuff. So
we've got 4 viewers a week on Twitch.
That's you should accidentally get clicked on a couple times.
I've never seen a comment come in from Twitch. I do know that.
I have actually.
Have you? I don't know if people can comment from Twitter either. I'm not sure.
That they can. No, they have to comment on the actual thread, but no, it doesn't come in. So that's the way it is.
It looks like it's all YouTube and Facebook.
But yeah, I was hoping to broadcast, but we'll see how it goes. Nobody likes me anymore. Got basketball next week. Gonna be posting my schedule pretty soon, probably tomorrow.
Nice.
I got at least one new gymnasium that I'll be doing streams from every now and then. By the way, I am trying to go up to Linden February. I will have a newborn baby by then though, so it'll be kind of difficult, but it's a Saturday in February at 2:00. I'm trying to do Linden Christian. So
that'd be fun.
Oh man, that would be an absolute blast.
Definitely. Yeah. It'll be fun to I paid some attention to basketball last year, but it's hard to do it as in depth as we do football overall with so many games and a lot of the same players though. That is one thing. It's fun to watch these kids that we've been paying attention to go impact another sport.
James asked if N2 Media is like national, and if I'm a spoke in a big wheel. Nope, it's all me, all mine, nobody else. I am the owner, operator, creator.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just like Tyson's the owner, operator, creator of Recruit Radar Pacific Northwest. Got a new website. He tried plugging it earlier. Why don't you tell everybody what it is again?
Recruit dash, like the middle dash, not underscore, radar.com. It's just simple. I've got links to our podcast episodes on there. I've got all my weekly rankings back from preseason to the final regular season set of rankings, which poke fun at them all you want. I was pretty on the board with some of them. I got to say, I was looking back at what was it, week 2? It might have been, it almost was 100% correct. In 1A, I had Royal Nooksack, Kashmir Lakeside. Obviously, it's Royal Nooksack Lakeside Seton Catholic. Later had them in the list. My top 4 in 3A was O'Day, Yelm, Eastside Catholic, Bellevue. So did pretty good for only being my second year of actually doing weekly rankings that aren't based off of a formula other than my Medusa oblongata?
I don't even know.
I think it's Medusa oblongata.
Yeah, medulla oblongata.
I think it's medulla. Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah.
It's medulla. Yeah, medulla oblongata. It's the brainstem. So, anyways, my formula is up here. I couldn't exactly explain to you how it all equates, but
no Curtis, you're wrong. Mama's right.
But if any players watch this, I've been working on 24 profiles. I will do 25, 26. It's not that I'm trying to ignore any of those kids, but I really just want to get them made for the kids whose seasons just ended or maybe in the process of doing that. They don't have another season ahead of them, so there's the time is dwindling on their recruit radar. But one kid that I just did a profile on, well, we talked about Kyson Thomas with the preferred walk-on. Bodie Gardner's gotten a few more, but I saw Aaron Kinsey of Rogers, who got injured in their game against Anacortes on the second series. He just got a full offer to Idaho today, so that's kind of cool. And I've recently covered a couple of linemen, and Cole Goodnow from Tahoma and Kelvin Mutalier from Meadowdale. Go on there. I've got links to their highlights, links to their social profile, and kind of accolades and stats from their senior seasons. But anyways, that's my plug. Eventually I'll put some articles on there. I started to write some for game previews this week, and I realized I was in for about 8 hours of work, and I only had about 2. So I decided, let's scrap the article section until later. But eventually that will be a thing.
Dude, I mean, it's hard. Writing out something intelligent in a short amount of time. Like I usually did like a 900 to 1,100 word article for the Daily News after I would get done doing a live stream, and then I'd turn around and go back to work at 6 in the morning the next day. So it's just like, damn.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and especially when I'm always trying to treat everything fairly. I don't want to say more about this kid than I do that kid. If I'm writing one of these player profiles, then I started getting into some of these games, and it was like I had way more to say about this game than I did that game. And that's where it gets kind of tricky. I kind of learned that the hard way earlier this year when I started doing a players to watch posts on Twitter by league and by team. And by the time I got done with 1A, I was like, oh my gosh, I just created so much work for myself, and kind of finished 2A and let it all fade into the background. Cause I was like doing all of 3A and all of 4A team by team. That was, that takes up virtually all of my free time that I have outside of work.
You're telling me, man.
It's overtime, but it's been fun.
James, I hang my hat on basketball coverage. So I see you're typing in about I might grow to be as big as ESPNU. It's gonna take a lot of work and a lot of time. Maybe 20 years I might be dead. Who knows? But you should go check out my Facebook page if you haven't yet. It's Facebook N2 Media LLC. I know that Auntie M has checked it out, but under my videos tab, I got tons of basketball games. And, here the Civil War basketball game is like one of the biggest in the entire state. Check it out. See the basketball games. See what you're missing out on. It's a lot better than football. Right, Tyson? You're on mute.
Sometimes a good basketball game can be more exciting than a good football game, but I still am always going to side with foosball.
No, I'm just saying that the broadcasts are a little bit.
Oh, it's just higher in action.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
The broadcasts are pretty phenomenal.
Get the effects of the gymnasium. Yeah. No, if it's a high level basketball game where both teams are competitive, there's not many things that are more exciting because they always go down to the last second.
Yeah, you can even pull some of my good stuff from the Eli Sports Network. I don't know if their catalog still has it from last year's state games, but yeah, man, like there was a triple overtime game. It was the 8 a.m. game on Trophy Day between Tumwater and North Kitsap. That game was bonkers, like triple OT. Like, yeah, Tyson was allegedly at the Yakima Valley Sun Dome to check out Anacortes and Enumclaw. I never actually saw him three-dimensionally there, though, but I was there.
You were just too late to the party. I
was on my way to check out R.A. Long in West Valley, Spokane. So, yeah, I'm excited to do basketball starting next week. Got a big game already on the schedule. A couple big non-league games. Justin Domashevitz should be pretty happy. I'll be broadcasting a game involving Montesano next week. So, yeah, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a real good time. I got to see if I can get up to Linden and do the Linden game because that's just going to be crazy. He was there. We were gone early. Yeah, I know he was there. I called him. Then he didn't answer his phone when I showed up because the game was like 30 points or something like that. And then he had to go. We were supposed to hang out. I went to Miners. I don't know if you've been to Miners in Yakima. I'm sure you have. But
of course, it's legendary, but vastly overrated in terms of quality. It's more about quantity there.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was going to take as long as it took for the food to be ready. And I was like a little surprised on how big the buns are. I'm like,
they're the biggest sesame seed bun you've ever seen. And I didn't even know they made them that large.
Right. Where do they manufacture those? Do they
that was my first and only question after eating there too. I was like, this is custom ordered.
It's like you can manufacture a burger patty to any size that you want, but
those buns are no joke. Like,
no, it's
realistic.
Yeah, no, it's
bigger
crazy.
than your face.
I took a picture of it and sent it to my wife. I'm like, dude, check out this burger. This thing is huge. Like,
it's not only the burger either. I remember my mom one time got like a fish witch from there, and it came on a giant bun too, and it was like, no joke. They're like
that name is so stupid.
A fish witch.
A fish witch. Yeah, big buns. I like big buns, and I cannot lie.
Miners definitely isn't lying about their buns.
What the fuck is a fish witch, dude? That sounds like it's yeah.
Fish witches are good. That's all I know. I'm a
fish
fan.
witch.
Little tartar, little American cheese. Good to go.
So you got me at tartar, right? It's like there's this. So we got this guy who is from Germany, right? He came over and he started working at the store. And he's doing, some cashier work and stuff like that. And I've been asking him questions. It's like, hey, what's it like, in Germany, right? What's it like in other places in Europe versus here and everything? And then he started asking me some questions about like where we are. And like, he's like, what kind of food do you have around here? Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, and I was like, have you tried the fish and chips and stuff? And he's like, no, I haven't. I'm like, oh, you got to try it with tartar sauce. And he's like, I don't know what tartar sauce is. I'm like, whoa! I'm like, mind blow. I was like, how do you not know what tartar sauce is? I'm like, it's mayonnaise based. It's got like dill pickle chops in it.
Because they're malt vinegars over there in Europe.
Yeah, well,
Which I'll advocate for malt vinegar on that.
Right.
On that as a side.
And he's like, oh, so it's like the UK. I'm like, I guess it's like, it's like we have fish and chips here too, bro. It's like, but yeah, he's telling me about all the good beer they have and all the stuff. I'm like, I believe that
they drink warm.
Yeah, I told him that he needs to watch Beer Fest, and then he's like, oh, is it a good film? I'm like, yeah, you'll love it.
Yeah, they drink it all warm. It grosses me out. I work with this guy who he used to be a big beer drinker and went to Germany, and he tried it warm, and he's like, I could never drink it the same. Well, now he doesn't drink, so he drinks warm Diet Coke instead. Never cold. I'm like, that's ludicrous.
Like, there's something to be said about like a good cold beer, bro. It's like a good cold beer just like slaps differently. It's like McDonald's Coke.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You know what I mean? With McDonald's Coke. I mean, some people don't understand the difference. They're like, why? They're like, why does McDonald's Coke mean anything different? I'm like, because they've got their own formula, bro.
Ocho Cinco, it's his favorite like food of all time. I remember back when he was a player, they were asking him, and he like, "What's your go-to?" He said, "McDonald's Coke, no ice, hands down, every single time."
I'm not on the no ice train. That's just like stupid to me.
I just think he wants more of it and doesn't want it watered down. But
there's nothing worse than warm soda, though. Like warm beer is better than warm soda. Like you can't convince me that you could go through a large Coke right without it getting warm or having that feeling of getting warm. And I feel like it loses its carbonation faster when it is warm. It's like, and the thing is to listen, I think that people don't want the ice because they feel like that it takes up a lot of room in the cup, but that's like stupid to me. Like who needs like literally 32 ounces of soda in one sitting anyway? Right? Like you really don't.
Especially Coke.
Yeah, you really don't. Like you could get like a good solid 20 ounce is totally fine. Like that's perfect amount. I can't tell you how many times I get like a 20 ounce soda and I don't finish the whole thing. Like to me, the perfect amount of soda is like a 16 ounce can. The aluminum can 16 ounces. Like you can have a 12 ounce one. It's like, okay, I can drink a little bit more than that. But you get the 16 ouncer. It's quite perfect. That's why that's why you like tall
2 cups. Yeah,
that's why. Yeah,
But those are 20, aren't they 20?
I don't know. You got your 16 ounces, and then you got your 24 ounce bullets. So,
yeah,
I don't know
for sure.
But anyway, big miners.
Miners is decent, but I always end up driving further down the road and going to Panda when I'm down there.
We actually had Panda tonight. Yeah,
I'm jealous.
Yeah, I had a combo. I had orange chicken and sweet fire chicken. And
nice.
I find the orange is a slightly spicier than the sweet fire. The name wouldn't imply that.
It has a little kick to it. I'm always a chow mein double orange chicken. I've ventured away from it a few times, and I'm like, that was a mistake.
Yeah, I don't go with the chow mein.
All in on the orange. What are you, fried rice? All right. I respect it. I like rice too, but we don't have very many
I don't think you do respect it. I think that you're.
I do, but I can make fried rice pretty well, and I can't make chow mein that well. I've never really
egg fried rice.
Yeah, easy. Little bacon, little egg, little whatever the heck else you want to put in there. It can just have bacon and egg, as far as I'm concerned. But hey,
we like to take leftover pork loin.
Oh yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, throw it in there with some rice and stuff, egg fry. There's this. It's not chili sauce or chili paste. It's called sambal. It's like real spicy. It's so good, man. You throw like a little spoonful of that in there with your soy. Oh, bro.
I'm gonna have to look for it because I love spicy.
Oh yeah, sambal. Sambal. That's what you want.
All right.
Yeah, you want that. You want that, and you want some rendang, maybe a little gall and gall.
What are these names you're spitting off right now?
This is like prominent Indonesian ingredients for Indonesian fried rice, bro. This is what you want, right?
All right. What's the last one?
Rendang,
Rendang and what else?
gall and gall. It's kind of like a gingery type substance and stuff, but you want to use it sparingly, not a lot, you know.
Galengal.
Yes, you'll Google it, you'll find it.
All right, I will do. Sounds good. We just got a Thai place moved into town, and they make pretty good fried rice, I gotta say.
And you also want to get like some, fresh green onion. Cut the tips.
Oh, for sure.
Cut the tips real small. Yeah, that's the good. Yeah, that's the good stuff right there. Auntie M said that Coca-Cola USA has its own separate share company just for McDonald's Coke. Yeah, it's the smartest move ever. Yeah.
She's always got just countless facts to drop on us.
Red Dawn, no, Rendang. Not Red Dawn. I know Red Dawn's a movie. Rendang. Rendang. I feel like I'm getting made fun of now. It's okay. It's okay. I'm used to it. I saw the East Lake video. I see the trolls from Enum Claw. I know. I get it. I need people to have my back though when I'm right, because I can't rub it in anyone's face if I'm right.
Yep.
But
hey, we've all been reprimanded a time or two this year, that's for sure. I won't go into what I was reprimanded for this week, but it happens. And at the end of the day, good or bad, whatever we say, it's got to pat our own backs. At least we're the ones doing the job. So,
yeah, we're on record that we suck. Now what are you going to do? Now what are you going to take away from us?
To tribute to an old saying from my high school days, I heart haters.
Yeah, dude. It's like, yeah.
The
best way to go about things, Tyson, is to just take the objection away from them. If you laugh along with them, what are they going to do then? They're bored.
Yep.
People only say things to get under your skin if it gets under your skin. If it doesn't, then it's like, what was the point of all of this? Because it's not affecting anything. It's like I will be back making bad picks in basketball. Not as many bad picks in basketball, though. I'll tell you that much.
Well, like you said too, with that video Eastlake posted, like this video goes hard. It was actually kind of cool to have yourself be like the intro to the hype, because it was like that was a dope video.
Oh yeah, it was super, super well put together.
Yeah.
I caught an elbow on the way down low to the basket there on that one. That was like, oof, hits hard. Love it. Yeah, big time.
Definitely.
But yeah, man, we're approaching our usual 3-hour mark, and somehow we managed to stretch this night out a little bit longer after our picks. Everybody can go back and rewatch them and make fun of them later. I know that I'll be getting tagged in posts as the games are going on Saturday. The good news is that I don't have any games to coach this Saturday, so I'm fully available to watch, fully available to eat some leftovers, or maybe might even make our own turkey this weekend. And yeah, we started out the show with our gobbles.
I will say about turkey, I saw this like meme this week, and it said like, seriously, why does everybody spend so much time cooking a piece of meat for hours that just turns out to be mid? And it's like, that's actually pretty valid. Like,
yeah,
if you were spent all that time on a brisket or something, everybody would be like, oh, this is so good. But it's like, turkey's turkey. I love turkey. I'm not bashing it, but it is kind of a funny point. We spend hours on one piece that ceiling is like, it's not even like D3. It's like NAIA type ceiling. And we could be making other, where's the prime rib? Where's even a good old ham, I think, competes with the turkey. But anyways, I look forward to it, since it's the only time of year I do end up having any, besides on a sandwich.
Dude, I often joke that's like, the Pilgrims really had it out for the Native Americans, bro, because they convinced them that our tradition was gonna eat turkey and cranberry sauce and breadcrumbs with water and celery and sage. Like, and then we're gonna have yams, sweet potatoes. It's like, man, we just told them like all the total shit food that nobody wants to eat, and we're gonna get together and we're gonna have a tradition. Or this is what we do, yeah. Hey, tell them we eat turkey. They're all like giggling, like, yeah. Meanwhile, they're bringing cornbread and stuff that's actually useful and delicious, and we're like, yeah, eat this bird, man. This bird's where it's at. And we've just been like so dedicated to the joke that we've been doing this for like 350 years.
It's become the logo for the day. Definitely.
Jake wants an Apple Cup score. UW 44, WSU 21.
I'm going to say 35-14 Dogs.
All right. Well, let's get us out of here, man. I just want to say real quick, I don't know if we'll have a show in full force next week because of my friend here on the right side of our screen heading down to Florida for a week. But it's been awesome so far, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Appreciate all the support that we've gotten, whether it's good or bad, and keep it coming, especially the stuff, because that's what keeps us motivated here. But happy Thanksgiving to everybody who's watching. Go back and rewatch. Again, check out Tyson's new website, recruit-radar.com. And mine is still n2media.tv. The live stream schedule should be posted tomorrow. But Tyson, it's been awesome, man. And look forward to getting together with you at least one more time, maybe two. And hope you get to Florida safely. And be sure to take lots of pictures for me.
For sure, I will. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And yeah, it's not the last time we'll meet for football. Maybe we could do like a once a month deal for basketball, and that makes it a little easier to tap into things. Or maybe we host a bowling and food podcast. Who knows?
Yeah, Auntie M wants us to talk stocks, although I don't know shit. So
there ain't nothing good to talk about.
Yeah, the market's down. Bye.
Yeah, my 401k looks like shit. See you later.
Thanks for tuning in. No, we're gonna have another show, James, for sure, to recap the state championship weekend at the bare minimum. But we'll try to get together and do a quick one next week, or I'll do something. And if I have to call to the bullpen to get somebody to step in for Tyson, maybe I'll do that. Who knows? Maybe one of my third grade boys will step in beautifully for Tyson and be able to pick the championship games.
Might pick him more accurately. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. But all right, y'all, happy Thanksgiving again. This is N2, Nick Sisson. That is Recruit Radar, PNW, Tyson McCallum. We appreciate you all, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Cheers.